kasi yung sa ibang sa van number 1, gusto lumipat sa hapon, eh wala namang gusto lumipat sa umaga ng mga van na dito sa hapon. Maayos na naman yung hapon kasi may time pa ako. Nung minadali ko yun, sabi ko, dalian mo. Sabi niya, nandiyan pa naman sila Robert. O bakit si Robert ba yung sasakyan mo? Madali siya.
Diba doon kasama sila?
Kasama nila yun. Di ba wala ba doon?
Laki.
Kasama din nila kay Tina.
Laki kayo ngayon.
Tapos nung pagbaba pa doon, nagpapasakay na sila tricycle. Sabi nila Kitay, may dala ka bang vaccine card? Ko di dala ni ate mo yung vaccine card. Nasa bag ko lagi, hindi ko kakakit. Bumalik. Sumunod din kami dalawa ni Bentong kasi ngayon load niya. Tapos Diyos ko, pagbalik sa bahay, inuna pa maghikaw. Kabaitan to. Ayun. May dala daw, may dala siya. Sinabihan ko niya, magdala ka kasi bawal yun natin ng madaling araw. Makakabuti tayo natin bawal yun. Hindi, kasi bawal ng mga panya. Bawal na mga panya bukas. Kaya, yung mga nag-overnight daw dun sa Ayala, dun mismo sa kalsada, hindi ka na kami po pwesto mamaya sa likod na likod. Mga alas 12 ng gabi yung nagpo-post, nandun sila. Pagkalim mo magsimula ng webinar.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to an international webinar of English education program of Stkip Soe under the theme 4 Skills in Harmony. My full name is Emanuela Lasveto. I am a student from English department of Stkip Soe second semester, and it's a wonderful precious change for me to be your host on this very special occasion. Firstly, let's say thanks to our God, the Lord of the universe, who has been given his blessings and mercy, so that today we can have opportunity to attain or participate this special event without any obstacles. Therefore, let's have a moment of silence to say our thanks to the Almighty God through prayers. Pray, begin. Pray and. Well, now we will listen to our national song, Indonesia Raya. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now we will listen to a welcoming speech from the head of English Education Program, Ibu Sonya Benu M.Pd. Time is yours.
Good morning. First of all, I want to say thank you for all the speakers and all the participants who are being participated in this event. I am Sonya Benu. I am the head of English Education Program of Stkip Soe. We praise God because this is our first time held an international webinar. So hopefully that everything will run well. I want to say thank you to Pak Willy Renandya. Thank you for being our speaker. I also want to say thank you to Ibu Anita Kurniawati, and also Donelson, and Ibu Teresia, and also Ibu Heidy Wulandari. Thank you for being our speakers in this international webinar. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. So everybody will learn from everything that you are going to share. The second one, I want to say thank you for all the participants who are participated in this international webinar. Hopefully that you will get so many beneficial during this international webinar. And the last, I want to say thank you for all the committees. Thank you so much for working so hard, preparing everything so everything can prepare well. And now we are in our international webinar. Hopefully God bless you with all your work. So finally, I want to say that welcome to English Education Program. Welcome to our first international webinar, and hopefully that everything will run well and you will get so many beneficial during this webinar. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Ibu Sonia. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's better for us to know our special speakers for our webinar, who will deliver some beneficial information for us today. They are Dr. Willy A and Renandya from National Institute of Education, Singapore. Hello, Dr. Willy.
Hey, morning. How are you?
And then Ibu Anita Kurniawati Hadiyanto M.Hum from Satya Wacana Christian University, Salatiga, Indonesia.
Yeah, Bu Anita.
Good morning, Ibu Anita.
Morning.
And then Dr. Donelson, Ph.D. from Fever Bali, Indonesia. Good morning, Miss Teresia. And Ibu Heidy Wulandari, S.Pd
Good morning.
Morning.
Besides, we know our great speakers, there are also two special people as moderators who will guide us in every session today's in webinar. They are Pak Yabes Olbata M.Pd. Good morning, Pak Yabes.
Hello, good morning.
And Fitriani Banunaik. Hi, Fitri. Hi. Yeah. My beloved ladies and gentlemen, you may have known about 4 skills in English, such as speaking, listening, reading, and writing. But today, you will get a new precious lesson that can improve or increase your knowledge and insight about these skills. So hopefully you will enjoy each material that will be delivered by the speakers. Before I give big opportunity to our moderators, let me read the rules of the webinar. First, participants' IDs in this webinar must use real names, not device names or institutional names. Second, participants who have access to Zoom must dress modestly and behave politely when the webinar is held. Third, participants are strongly expected to mute the microphone during the webinar process. Fourth, all participants can ask questions by following the format that has been shared in the chat box. Fifth, the moderator will choose the question because of the time limitation. And the second one is the attendance list will be distributed at the end of every sessions. Well, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully everyone obeys the rules. And as I have mentioned before, our topic in this webinar are interesting because it will be delivered by all great speakers that refer to 4 skills in English, such as listening, writing, reading, and speaking. Probably you are also wondering what kind of materials that will be bring by the speakers, but don't worry, I'm sure you will not regret to join this event because a lot of insights you will get later. So without any further ado, now I will give the opportunity to the moderators. For the moderators, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Ella. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
Hello, I'm Yabes Olbata, and I'm going to be the moderator for the great speaker.
Yeah, Bess, we lost you. Yeah, Bess, your audio is off. Yes, try again.
With channel maybe.
Well, on behalf of the committee, we are so sorry for this inconvenience. Then, well, we are going to continue. So I'm really glad to be the moderator for this international webinar. And as said by Ibu Sonia before, that this is our first international webinar, but we believe that this is a really great chance because we have the great speakers, as mentioned by the host before, who are going to share their knowledge to enlighten us about English learning and teaching. And under a team for skills in harmony, as the first moderator, I will guide you in this session. Then the session, there will be 3 great speakers. They are Dr. Willy Renandya, Ibu Anita Hadiyanto, and Dr. Donelson, Ph.D. So ladies and gentlemen, before I give the time to the first speaker, I'm going to tell you how the session will be going on. First, the first speaker, what I mean is that Pak Willy and Ibu Anita will begin their presentation. While they are explaining, all the participants are allowed to type the questions in the chat box. After that, the third speaker will be given time to present her materials. In this case, Ibu Dr. Daniele. Then after that, we will have a question and answer session where the committee will choose the appropriate questions in the chat box and we'll read it for the first or the second or even the third speaker to answer. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that we cannot wait to hear about all skills in English from our great speakers. Therefore, I would like to introduce our great session. They are Dr. Willy and a PhD in educational psychology. He is a language teacher educator, currently teaching applied linguistic courses at the National University of Education, Singapore. Prior to his current position, he also taught at Simeo, Singapore, where he also served as the head of the Department of Language, Education and Research. He has taught in many parts of
Your audio is off again. Yabes, your audio is off. Yabes, your audio is off.
Sorry, he maintains an active language teacher professional development firm called Teacher Voices. Then the second great speaker will be Ibu Anita Hadiyanto, who is a lecturer at the English Language Education Program, Faculty of Language and Arts, Satyawacana Christian University. She has been teaching for 19 years, and she earned her master degree from Atmajaya Indonesia Catholic University, Jakarta. Her research interests include extensive reading, extensive listening, and teacher professional development. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I will give the chance to the first great speakers. Pak Willy and Ibu Anita, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pak Yabes. Thank you for the kind introduction. Good morning, everyone. Can I just ask you to briefly turn on your video? I want to say hello to you. If you can, just turn on your audio for maybe 10 seconds. Very good. Now I get to know you, I get to see you, and I know that I'm speaking to people here, not to my own screen. Daniel, a long time no see. How are you, Daniel?
I'm well, Pat Willy. How are you?
Oh, good to see you. It's been, what, 15 years since I
A
last
long
met you?
time. It's been a long time. Yeah.
Yep. So it's really good to see you again. Ladies and gentlemen, I will be presenting with Ibu Anita, and my topic is about listening. We'll be speaking for about 30 minutes, and then the next speaker will continue until we get to the very end, eventually covering all the four major skills of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So allow me to begin. I'll be focusing mostly on listening, but as you can see, that listening is very, very much related to speaking as well, to pronunciation, to how you produce language in whatever language that you're learning. Let me begin by asking you a very, very simple question for us together to consider. Now, 4 skills, as we all know: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Which one do you think is the most important? For my session, please say listening, okay? And for Daniel's session, maybe later you can mention speaking. And for the following session, please say reading. And for the last session is writing. In other words, what I'm saying is that all the 4 skills are important. Now, the next question I have for you is this: which of the 4 skills is the most difficult or the most challenging? Well, the answer is quite straightforward. For people learning English at a very early stage, I think all the 4 skills are very, very difficult. My experience, however, tells me that listening in particular in places like Indonesia, in China, in places where English is not used very commonly in society, listening is very, very difficult, at least at the early stage of language learning or language development. Today, Ibu Anita and I will be sharing our thoughts, our knowledge, our understanding about this important skill called listening. So first off, I'll be sharing with you about what listening is all about, what are the mental processes, what are the cognitive processes that are involved when we say that we understand what people are talking to us in a new language like English, or maybe French or Japanese or any other languages. Secondly, I'll share with you some of the important reasons why listening is very, very important in the process of language learning. Yes, the other skills are important too, but without a basic foundation in listening and also in reading, it will be very, very difficult for our students to acquire a decent level of proficiency in the language. And finally, I'll share with you part of my sharing on teaching will then be taken over, will be continued by Ibu Anita. I'll be looking at two ways of teaching listening. One is probably known as intensive listening, the kind of listening that we normally do. And the other one is known as extensive listening. Let me get started by sharing with you, by discussing what is this thing called listening? What is the process involved when people try to listen, try to comprehend a new language like English that they're learning? It's a little bit technical, but this is what psychologists, these are what experts have been using as a basis for describing the process of comprehension. Remember, the terms here are a little bit technical, and I'm going to use the simple words to explain what this means. The very first step is perceiving. Perceiving basically means hearing, catching the sounds, catching the words that people are talking to you. Yeah, perceiving, perception. In the case of listening, we are using our ears, right? In the case of reading, we are using our eyes. Yeah, but this step is the very, very first step for people to be able to process, to comprehend the language. But we don't stop there. Catching the words, catching the sounds is just the first step. The second step is for people, for you and me, to make use of our language knowledge, grammar knowledge, to parse the sounds of the words that we are hearing. Now, this process, in a very simple word, is known as chunking. We need to be able to chunk the words in meaningful units. Without this ability, I think listening will be very, very difficult. The last part is known as utilizing or utilization. Again, this is a technical words. This part means, the process of the listeners making connections, making inferences, making use of their prior knowledge in order to make sense of the text. What is the message that the person, the speaker, is trying to say to you? So utilization is about making connections, about connecting and comprehending. I hope that makes sense, yeah? Now, these steps are always, always involved, whether you learn Bahasa Indonesia, whether you learn, Javanese or any other languages, you will have to go through these steps of learning. Let me just expand a little bit about the perception. Now, the perception thing, the hearing, the catching of the sounds can be very straightforward for us when we speak our own language. When we listen to Bahasa Indonesia, for example, the process is very straightforward. But when we listen to a new language like English or German or French, for example, then we have to deal with a number of things. Now, these are things that we need to deal with. We need to understand the sounds, for example. And sounds don't occur alone. Sounds usually occur together, and that can cause a little bit of a problem. And very often the boundary, the batas between one word and another word can be very blurry. When I say, look it out, look at it, for example, is it one word or three words? Very hard for students, especially at the early stage of learning, to distinguish one word from another. Accent can be, challenging as well. If you are listening to Daniel later on, you will find that her accent is very, very pleasant, very nice, very easy to understand. But if you hear somebody from other places, it may be quite challenging. So the accent can be a factor there. And then the speed, how fast or how slow the person is speaking to you, can also be a source of perception problem. So these are usually the kind of things that we need to deal with when we teach our students how to listen and how to understand spoken language, yeah? Sounds, sound blending, words and their boundaries, accent, speed, and so on and so forth. The second bit, the parsing. Parsing is the kind of processes that you need to develop by making use of your knowledge about the grammar of the language. Yeah, and this will allow you to chunk, to put 2 or 3 words together in order for you to be able to make sense. If you process the sound, sound by sound or word by word, you'll have a hard time understanding what the person is trying to say. So word group, and sometimes if you have developed a higher level of proficiency, you may be able to chunk a larger unit of the language at the sentence level, or sometimes even at the more complex level of the language. But this is important where comprehension is concerned. And finally, the first 2 stages are not enough. You need to know what the topic is all about. So your experience with the language, your knowledge about the topic that the person is discussing is going to be very important. Now, these knowledge types allow you to make connections, allow you to comprehend what the person is trying to say to you. Yeah. So again, 3 stages. The first one is perception, parsing, and utilization. Very briefly, Pak Yabes, what are the main sources of listening problems for your students in Soe? S.Pd M.Hum. What is the main source of difficulties? All of them, yeah? Is it all of them? Or is this perception problem or parsing problem? Bu Anita, your students, parsing, perception, utilization, or all of the above?
All of them.
All of the above, all of them,
All of
okay. Yeah, now interestingly, from our experience and also from research that I have seen, now here's one example of a piece of information that I get from research. Interesting. The main source of difficulty in listening among students in Indonesia, Thailand, and many other places, Japan, Korea, is this: a disturbingly large number of larger scale problems of understanding actually have their origins in small scale errors of word recognition. I think in a very simple word, John Field here is saying that the most important source of problem, comes from students' inability to perceive. So the very first step, perceiving the sound, perceiving the words, being able to distinguish, the borders or the word boundaries. And sometimes they just don't have enough vocabulary. Now here is a very interesting data that I've seen from China. So the researcher asked hundreds of students in China about the sources of their listening problems. And these are 10 of the most frequently mentioned problems that students in China, I think China is very much like Indonesia in terms of English language learning. Number 1, the most frequently cited problem is speaking rate, speed. Because people speak too fast, they are not able to catch the sounds. So that is a big problem. And because of that, they get distracted. They can't focus their attention. And number 3 is they don't know the words. They don't have the words. Or maybe they know the words in writing, but not when they're listening to the words. And number 4 is vocabulary, words. Yeah, I think you get the idea. Now, these are problems related to the very initial stage of listening, perception problem. Now, here are some real examples of students who were interviewed. These are students from China again. If the speed is too fast, I will not be able to remember the information. So speed is a problem. Yeah. And later we need to discuss how we can reduce the speed for the students at the initial stage of learning so that they can make sense, they can understand what they're listening to. Yeah, so when people speak too fast, they get confused, they're lost, they get distracted. Now, this is a very, very interesting quote. Again, from students. I have a very small vocabulary, so word problem, vocabulary problem. I think for learning English, now this is very important for us to remember, the grammatical rules seldom change. Now, this is very interesting. Students say that grammar essentially is easy. Grammar is not too difficult. It's vocabulary that is difficult. And yet teachers often spend a lot of time teaching and reteaching, teaching grammar again. But that's not what the students need. I think students need more vocabulary. Yeah, so that's kind of interesting. If you're looking for a piece of research that was done recently by Matthew Wallace, and this paper was published in a big journal in our field, language learning, very interesting and very complex study. He wanted to know what factors influence listening comprehension. So the blue bubble there, listening, yeah. And he examined a number of factors, banyak sekali, a number of factors, and he wanted to know which factor is the most important. There you go. Number one is topic, whether or not you are familiar with the topic. So that is utilization, yeah. And then number two, there you go, vocabulary. So these are two things that we need to develop in our students. And Ibu Anita will later tell you how to go about teaching our students to become more familiar with a wider variety of topics, and at the same time, allowing students to develop their vocabulary knowledge. So vocabulary is the most important there. Okay, so that's the first part. Again, ladies and gentlemen, three things that we need to remember. The process of comprehension involves perceiving. You can't run away from that. Number two is parsing. And number three is utilization. Okay. Now we move on to part two. Why is listening important? I'm asking a very important question here. For many, many years, listening has not received a lot of attention. For many years, listening has been neglected. Teachers don't enjoy teaching listening. Teachers don't know how to teach listening. Teachers find that listening is boring, and students also find listening to be a very uninteresting and boring language lesson. Yeah, so they've been treated, listening has been treated like a, the miserable adopted daughter of the family. But I think we now know that listening is very important, because this is one of the most important sources of language learning, one of the most important sources of language input. Now we know from experience and also from the literature, from research, that without input, nothing much is possible. And for students to develop their speaking skill, they need to listen. They need to they need to get a lot of language input in the form of listening materials, video materials, and so on and so forth. We also know that if you can't listen, if you have difficulty listening, it's not your ears. It's because you have not done enough listening. And because of that, you won't be able to speak the language very well. If you can't pronounce words very well, there's no point in giving students more practice in pronunciation. I think we need to give students more practice in listening. So more listening and more listening. So at this point, let me ask you this question again. Which one is more important, learning to talk or learning to listen? Ibu Anita. This is a multiple choice question. Which one is more important, learning to talk or learning to listen?
Maybe learning to listen first part.
Okay, because our topic is listening, yeah? Listening to listen, yeah? Both are important, but one will have to come first before the other. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, very important for you to remember. If you can't speak well, there's no point for you in practicing more speaking. I think you need to go back and practice more listening. Yeah, for how long? Maybe for 6 months, maybe for another year or so. And then, surprise, surprise, you'll be able to become more confident, more fluent in expressing yourself orally in the English language. Now, here is something to support, what I just said. A nice quote for me. Some people now believe that learning a language is not just learning to talk. Yes, talking is important, but talking or speaking is something that comes later. That's your goal of learning. But rather that learning a language is about building a map of meaning in the mind. Yeah, kata kuncinya adalah building a map of meaning in our mind. To continue, these people believe that talking may indicate Talking may indicate that the language was learned, but they do not believe that practice in talking is the best way to build up this cognitive map in the mind. So how do we build this cognitive map in the mind so that we can later produce the language for speaking and also maybe for writing purposes? Yeah. There's no other way. You need to get yourself and your students to do a lot of listening practice. Important to remember, the kind of listening that the students do will have to be easy, comprehensible at their level, not something that is difficult to listen, difficult to understand. It has to be easy, it has to be comprehensible, it has to be interesting as well. And point number 2, it has to be done in large quantity. So listening one piece of audio or video material, for example, is not enough. I think students will need to listen every day, every single day for 6 months or maybe for 1 whole year. And that is how you build this linguistic system in your head. Now, in language teaching, we usually try to get our students to learn bits and pieces of the language, the sound, the sound variations and things like that. And we also may want to get the students to learn some fixed phrases, ready-made language. And I think we need to get our students to learn a lot of this. If you spend too much time giving students practice in distinguishing between, 2 sounds, what is the name of that contrast between 2 sounds? What kind of exercise is that? Ship and sheep and things like that. I think that is useful, but not extremely useful. So I suggest that we spend less time on that, but we should spend more time giving students opportunity to acquire a lot more fixed phrases, idiomatic expressions, and also known as ready-made language. These are examples of ready-made phrases or sentences, if you like. Yeah, things like, I got to do what I got to do. Things like, once upon a time, you don't even think about it, just because these words come together. I can't think of anything right now. Do you really mean that? You can't be serious. Oh my God, Yabez, oh my God, it's been a while. I haven't seen you for ages. Now these words come together just like that. The students will just need to remember to learn these words. And the best way to learn this is through what Ibu Anita will call extensive listening or extensive viewing. Now here are more examples. Yeah. You don't learn this in the classroom, you can't. It's not possible for you to learn hundreds of thousands of this in the classroom. If you depend on the classroom, then what happens is this. You will have a lot of non-proficient speakers because they have only a few of these fixed expressions, yeah, or ready-made language. And we do know from our experience and also from research that proficient speakers, people like Ibu Anita and me and Daniel, we have thousands of this in our head. And these are part of our linguistic system, the cognitive map that I mentioned earlier on. And that is what enables me and other competent users of the language to become very fluent users. And their language, their production, their speaking is usually very, very idiomatic. Yeah, good. So I have just shared with you, again, the first two. The first part is what is listening. And I look at 3 phases or 3 stages: perception, parsing, and utilization. Yeah. And then point number 2, I talk about why listening is important. Essentially, the key point is that, yes, both listening and speaking are important, but listening must come first because listening is a great source of language input, and listening is a great source of these fixed expressions that the students will need to acquire over a 1 year or 2 year period. The last part of my presentation is about how to teach listening. There are 2 things here. There are 2 main approaches. Number 1 is listening as comprehension. This is known as intensive listening. I think many of you are familiar with this approach to teaching listening, which is commonly used in the classroom in Indonesia and also in other places. Intensive listening. The other one is known as listening as acquisition or extensive listening. Yeah. So today I'm going to share with you that both are important, but I think we need to spend more time doing number 2 than doing number 1. Okay. So number 1 is okay, but number 2 is more okay. So I think we need to do number 2 a lot more. Number 1, the listening as comprehension or intensive listening, very common. In the listening classroom, we may be spending time giving students practice and exercises and maybe a lot of explanation about things like this. Sound contrast. Hey, thin is different from tin, for example. Sheep is different from ship. Yes, okay, fine, yeah, but don't overdo it. I don't think we should overdo this. Word boundary. For example, you say one sentence and then naturally, with sound blending and everything, and then you ask your students to count the number of words. Giving students more practice so that they know that in speech, people usually say, instead of isn't it or isn't it, people say things like in it. Yes, I think it's a good idea for you to highlight some of this. Speed training, you can ask the students to slow down the speed and maybe increase the speed gradually over time. These are things that you can do as part of the approach of listening as comprehension. Yeah, now here are additional examples of things that we normally do, how sounds behave differently when they occur in connected speech. We've got assimilation, elision, resyllabication, reduction, and things like that. I think these are things that we usually do in the classroom, yeah? Again, my message is, can we do this? Yes, we can, but don't overdo this. Yeah, don't spend too much time on this. Some people spend time trying to get the students to think, to make plans, to set their purpose for listening, to be more focused in when they are listening to a piece of text. And we also may want to encourage students to monitor their own comprehension and also to evaluate their own comprehension. Now, this is part and parcel of the approach known as intensive listening. Now, this one is fine. Yeah, usually the lesson goes like this: before the lesson, during the lesson, and after the lesson. Warm-up activities, some words may be highlighted. Sorry. Some words may be highlighted. Sorry, that's my alarm. And problem sounds may be, singled out for focus instruction, and some listening skills and strategies may be taught to the students. And then during the listening, students may be asked to listen 1 time or 2 times. Yep, and when that is done, then the next part is the most frightening and the most tedious part, comprehension exercises. Usually the students are given about 5, maybe 10 questions to respond, to comprehension questions. Okay. Is this okay? I think yes, we can do this, but again, don't spend too much time on this. I think we need to think about how we can provide our students with a lot more opportunities to do a lot more listening, both in the classroom and also outside the classroom. Remember this, yeah? People learn to listen by listening, by doing a lot of listening. So the amount of listening and the frequency of listening becomes very, very, very important. So this is the other approach, yeah? Listening as acquisition. And remember, the materials need to be easy, comprehensible, interesting, enjoyable, and compelling. So these are the kind of things that we want to spend more and do more with our students. So if you take that and use that as a basis for improving on the structure of your lesson plan, it will look something like this. The before should be about the same, yeah? But more importantly, what you need to do is to get the students to be excited, to be curious about the content, because psychologically it's very important that the students find the video materials or the listening materials important. During the listening, this is where you can slow down the speed. So slowing down the speed is not a big issue. And if the students need to, they can turn on or turn off the subtitle if they're watching a video. Yeah. So watching a video and reading the subtitle is a very good thing to do. And get your students to listen not just 1 time, 2 times, but maybe 3 times, maybe 4 times, and so on and so forth. After the listening, you can ask a variety of comprehension checking activities that involve students thinking, students' emotion, and students doing things. Many other things that we can do, not just limited to asking comprehension questions. Comprehension question is probably the most typical and probably not the most exciting for the students to do. Get the students to do shadowing. Shadowing means reading along or speaking along with the materials that they're listening to or they're watching, if it is a video. And outside the classroom, we should get the students to do a lot more listening. So the key thing again is more is good. More listening is good. Not more teaching, not more exercises that we normally do in the classroom. Yeah. So shadowing, if you haven't tried this yet, give it a try. Get the students to do this shadowing technique. This is one of the most powerful techniques that are used by polyglots. Polyglots are people who speak like 5 or 10 different languages. Almost all of them will tell you that they pick up a new language by doing a lot of shadowing. Yeah. So my message again is get the students to listen more in the classroom and also more outside the classroom. There's a lot of sources available on the internet, listening materials. This is one of them. It's called ELLO. ELLO. It has hundreds, if not thousands, of free listening materials. So you can't say that, well, materials are not available. That's not true. A lot of materials are available on the internet. If you have access to Netflix, for example, that is another great source. But the language may be a bit difficult, but you can always turn on the subtitle. You can always listen again until you understand. Now, I'm not going to play the video, but this is a great video for you to watch after, maybe later, of somebody who is very successful in learning English by watching a lot of video, a lot of movie, a lot of TV sitcom. Now, this is what they say. Not all of them, but there's one of them. The one on the right-hand side is the group band leader. The name is Kim Nam Jun. Now, what he says is extremely important for us to remember. Yeah. He says that he would first watch the movie with the Korean subtitle. Why? Because he wouldn't understand without the subtitle, yeah? But it doesn't stop there. He would watch again 2 times with the English subtitle. And then number 3, he would watch again without any subtitle. So what sitcom did he watch when he was a teenager? Here, Friends. And altogether, Friends has how many episodes? About 300 episodes. 300 episodes. And this guy watched all of the episodes 3 times. So that means like about 1,000 episodes. So no wonder his English is very, very good. This is another example of somebody from Indonesia whose English is also excellent. And I'm not going to play this video, but this is just another example of how people have, spent time actually beyond the classroom, doing a lot of listening, doing a lot of reading. And as a result of that, she was able to develop a very good proficiency in the English language. Yep. So ladies and gentlemen, I've shared with you 3 things. Number 1 is what is listening. Remember, perception, parsing, and utilization. Why is this important? Because listening must happen first before speaking. And listening must happen to a great deal or in a great amount and quantity before the students can develop their speaking fluency. And finally, how to go about teaching it. There are two ways of doing this. The first one is what we normally do in the classroom, known as intensive listening or listening as comprehension. The other one is listening as acquisition or extensive listening, which Ibu Anita from Satya Wacana University is going to share with you. And she is a big fan of extensive listening. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ibu Anita Hadiyanto from Satya Wacana University.
Thank you, Pak Willy.
Anita, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Pak. Okay, so I will share my screen. And yes, so I will just share you how we do extensive listening in our context. Okay, let me try to find. Now, there are two, I'll start with this one. Reasons why we do extensive listening. So I think there are two main reasons. So first is our learners, especially in EFL context, need to be exposed to a massive amount of target language input. So both written and spoken language input. And we do aware that in EFL context, learners only have a very limited chance to be exposed to English. But like Pak Willy has mentioned before, if they want to be successful English language speakers, so they need to have a massive amount of target language input. And where they can have it, of course, we can do the so-called extensive listening, because teachers also have a limitation. We cannot, we cannot share all the idiomatic expression and stuff like that to our students. They need to find it by themselves. That's the first thing. And then the second one, learners need to enjoy what they are listening to. So I think once again, Pak Willy mentioned about intensive listening and extensive listening. So intensive listening, well, all the materials, listening materials are all coming from the teachers, which probably the learner will not enjoy listening to that materials. Now, in extensive listening, the learners can choose actually their own listening materials. And the materials, not too difficult, not too easy. It should be at their appropriate level. And then, the third one, of course, it will make the students happy. There is no listening comprehension test. Now, if you want to know more about extensive listening and all stuff, I think you can read these articles. So all about extensive listening. Now, the next one is questions about the materials. I think Pak Willy has shared free sources that you can use. Now, in our context, in our extensive listening class, we use these materials. And again, there are also free materials. So one is from ER Central, and then EnglishEreader.net, and then Eli Graded Readers. And we also encourage our students to listen to more text from Storyline Online, Open Culture, and many things, or VOA. And I will share you a little bit about ER Central. So what you can do is just later after this session, you can just visit ER Central, and then you can explore ER Central by yourself. There's a clear guideline there. And this is Dr. Rob Waring is one of the founding father for ER Central. And what you need to do, you actually need to register yourself as a teacher or administrator first before, and then create a class, which later, otherwise your student cannot access. So the first step, as a teacher, you need to register for as a teacher or administrator, and then you set or you create the class so that your students can use the web. Now, this one, I will just show you several, how the web look like. So if you register, this is the student's view. Now, this one, if the student want to know from which level they should start, they can check their appropriate level from what is my level. So remember, once again, that the material that the student need to listen should not be too difficult, should not be too easy. If that is too difficult, they won't enjoy. If they won't enjoy, they will not be able to learn the language. Yeah. And then this one, if they click the listening library, they will see this one. So here, there are many materials that the student can access. So if you see this one, this is the level 9.6, 9.3, 9.1. Okay, this is to show the level of the text. And then there are many categories here that the students can select by themselves. So factual, story, children, student writing, and many more. And then in each category, so there are many listening materials that the student can try. They can listen by themselves. Now, for example, the student click this one, so they will see this one. Yeah. So they will have the audio, and at the same time, they will also read the text. So Pak Willy mentioned about shadowing. So this is an example of shadowing technique. So the student will listen to the audio, and they are at the same time also read the text. And after they finish listening to the text, they can choose whether they want to take the quiz or no quiz. In our experience with my student, our students love to take the quiz because they want to measure, they want to know whether they can really understand what they have listened. Okay, and then that's about the material. The next one is about, okay, before the activity, this is the view for the teachers. Yeah, if you register as a teacher or administrator, you can have this page view. Yeah. Now this one, as an administrator, I can set up 2 different classes. This is my class actually, and then this is the class for the other extensive listening teacher. And later, if we click this, we can monitor our student progress. Okay, that is about the material and what we can do with ER Central. So once again, I encourage you to later try exploring the web by yourself and try it. And then this one is the activity. Now, the listening activities themselves should be done outside the class. So when we have a class meeting, we use it for activities like discussion and or sharing. And we can have, for example, a very simple questions that the student can discuss, like what did you listen? Did you like it? What can you learn from the story? Or you can probably give a kind of theme for the students to talk about. So for example, can you talk about the characters of the story that you have listened? Or maybe what are the cultural aspects? So you can have something like that. But again, the point here is the listening activities should be done outside the class. And then for the listening activities itself, we set a target number of the text. So our student need to listen to at least 70 texts. Why 70? Because we assume that they will listen to at least 1 text every day for 10 weeks. So we come up with 70 texts. And it looks, kelihatannya sedikit sekali ya. I think Pak Willy mentioned it should be, students need to listen to a massive amount of text if they want to be able to become great English speakers. Now, actually, our ER class or extensive listening class is combined with extensive reading. So beside these activities, they also need to do reading activities. So we think that 70 texts for the listening section is quite reasonable for our context. And we have projects. Project can be done individual or in group or in pair. So like this one, promoting the story they have listened, making a podcast, or interviewing the character of the story. So it's not answering comprehension text, but we can do other things. Because remember, the second reason for extensive listening, we want the student to enjoy what they are listening to. That's why the activities should also be fun. And the fourth activity that we do is writing journal. So students are asked to write a journal about what they have listened. Now, I'll give you an example of the student's journal. Now, this one, here the student need to choose an emoji actually to represent what they think or feel about the story that they have listened. Of course, it's not just giving the emoji or choosing one particular emoji, but they also need to write information about the story. So like what the story is about, who is the author, what is the genre, and so on and so forth. And then they can choose one emoji, and then they can explain the reason for choosing that particular emoji. Of course, the explanation should be relevant to the story. So they cannot create their own reason. Yeah, it should be related to the story. And then the last point that I can share is about assessment, because I think many teachers will ask how we assess the students if they just they can choose whatever material they want to listen. They do no comprehension test, and it's just a project and writing journal. So here what we are doing in our contact is we look at the target goal, whether the student can achieve the target goals or not. And then remember that what we are assessing here is the product of the listening activity. So for example, like the listening journal, this one, what we assess is, of course, the content, whether the student can do this instruction, can fulfill all the instruction here. And of course, there's a language aspect as well. Yeah. And then for example, projects, yeah, like making a movie poster, for example. Yeah, of course, we assess them based on the content, yeah, whether they can share, they can provide information about what the story is about, and then why they choose the most, why they make or they create the poster that way, what is the relevancy between the poster that they create and with the story, and then creativity. So these are the assessment points that we usually use for our extensive listening class. I think that's all from me, but Willy and everybody. Yes.
Well done, well done. Thank you so much.
Okay, back to you, Yabes.
Yeah, but your audio is off. We can't hear you.
Yeah.
I can't hear him.
Yeah.
Yabes. No sound, Yabes. Yabes, come to Singapore. I'll give you a new computer. Nope, no sound.
Hello?
Yes, good now.
Oh, so sorry. Well, again, thank you very much, Pak Willy and Mrs. Anita, for the significant and useful material. I do believe that after joining the webinar, all participants here will have new knowledge based on what has been explained by our two great speakers in order to improve their or our ability in listening. So, well, ladies and gentlemen, actually there is also a skill in English that cannot be separated. Its importance in learning language, especially in English, because besides listening skills, there are another three skills. And writing skills is also a skill that always make us, especially English students, find many difficulties. However, the problems in writing skills will be solved today after listening to our
Yes,
great speaker.
way to go.
And
way to go, Daniel.
hopefully. Our great speakers is Dr. Donelson, Ph.D. from Phi University, USA, who will give us some beneficial guidance in learning writing. So, Dr. Daniela Donelson, Ph.D., holds her BA in theater, an MA in English literature, which focus in the teaching of writing. Her research and writing interests include cultural rhetorics, decolonial pedagogy, critical thinking, and how to make literary theories accessible for EFL students. She lives in Charlotte, NC, USA, and she is an assistant professor at Fairfield University. Today, she is going to share her knowledge to enlighten us about writing. So without spending a lot of time, Daniela, time is yours.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, Bes. And terima kasih. And selamat pagi semua, ibu-ibu, bapak-bapak, dan sudah lama. But so nama saya Daniel Donelson, and dulu saya tinggal di Indonesia selama 5 tahun. And waktu itu saya mengajar di UKSW, Universitas Kristen Satyawacana di Jawa Tengah. I will switch to English, but I wanted to try that out. It's been a long time. It's hard to find Indonesian conversation partners here. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I really have, the time I spent in Indonesia holds such a special place in my heart, and I miss the people and the culture, and so this is a really big honor. So thank you. So I want to talk to you guys today a little bit about writing, and I am going to talk about it from the perspective of someone who has studied rhetoric and composition. So what that means is this. When I was in Indonesia, I was oftentimes labeled as a literature professor because the options there, you were the literature docent, or you were the TESOL, docent, or you were the linguistics docent. But in my experience, in my education, I actually study writing, or what we call rhetoric, which is oftentimes understood to be effective communication. So my focus is in how do we teach writing, and I focus on that in teaching a lot of American students, and for whom English is their native language, but still struggle a lot with writing. And that surprises sometimes some of my students and former colleagues, I think, in Indonesia, that native speakers struggle with English or struggle with writing. But yes, they do very much, because writing is hard. It's very hard. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the ways that, I'm going to turn my power on here. Some of the ways that we can understand some more about writing. This keeps, sorry, bear with me. Okay. I'm having having a problem with the Zoom here. Oh my.
Hello, Daniel.
Yes.
Is it possible for us to help you for sharing the materials to the participants?
Yes, I have got that right here. I apologize. The space bar got really large and I couldn't select that. Okay. Here we go.
Okay.
My apologies. All right, so, oh, this has my translated version as well. So one of the things that I want to say about writing is that it's a skill and it's a process. So what that means is, as a skill, it means that you need to do more of it. You know, you need to practice it more. Like what Willy was saying about to improve upon, you know, your speaking, you need, and your listening comprehension, you need to listen more. And that holds true for writing as well. Many students to me say, oh, I'm a bad writer, I'm a bad writer. And I think that we need to better understand writing as something that anybody can get better at. So much like the skill of playing a musical instrument or the skill of playing a sport, you know, soccer, you do it more, the better. If you do it more, you get better at it. And it's very true for writing as well. So, and again, as Willy said, the amount of hours, the amount of time spent listening, I would echo the same thing about writing, that it takes a lot of time, and you should allow yourself time to get to have points where you can just get your thoughts out without being so worried about your grammar mistakes or your syntax, your mechanics. So I often tell my students, writers got to write. You know, you have to continue to do it, otherwise you're going to get rusty at it, like many of the skills with speaking or listening. So you got to keep that practice up. And I think that that's something that we emphasize to American students as well, because yes, many of them still think of themselves as very bad writers. And I think that that's important because many times I think when we think about writing as writing within a foreign language or a second language, we think about so often, oh, my mistakes as a native speaker, or the mistakes that I make that a native speaker would not make. But there's a whole bunch of things that I want to think about so we can really break down what writing means. So writing as a process, what that means is it involves several different steps in order to complete your final polished piece of writing, especially if it's a longer like essay, or especially if you have to use sources, then it's going to take a few steps or a few stages for you to pass through in the process of getting to that final piece of writing. It's hard. It doesn't just happen like that. And that's true for anybody who does writing. So that means that both when we practice writing ourselves, as well as when we teach students that, giving them the opportunities to do those steps. So brainstorming, for example, thinking through what it is you want to write about. And a very important part of writing is thinking. And I think we don't emphasize that enough, that cognition aspect where you are really choosing to think through the different things you could write about, the options you could write about. And that has to come before perfect grammar. That has to come before, you know, your verb tenses are correct. You have to have content of things you want to say first and foremost, because you can have a grammatically perfect paper and it might not say much of anything. So when we think about writing, I want to encourage people not to feel like it has to be perfect, especially right at the beginning. So when I say writing as a process, allow yourself the time to make those steps of the messy process to get to your end result of your piece of writing. Okay. So it can be challenging, but it's helpful to know that people's writing process looks different. People go about doing writing in very different ways because people think differently. And we think about organization, and we think about the ways we can organize ideas. People have different ways of organizing. And so that's all okay. When we present these steps of the writing process, a lot of times it's like, well, first you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this, and then you get a perfect paper or a perfect piece of writing, as though it's some formula, like a science formula. And it doesn't work that way. It's a lot messier than that. The best writing a lot of times is messy. It involves a lot of mess at first, the rough drafts. So I give the example of like outlines, because I tell my students all the time that I think they're wonderful if they work for you as a way of organizing your ideas, but I hate them. They confuse me, and I used to just dread them. I hated doing them when I had to do them for a speech class. So for me, I use a different method of trying to organize my ideas, because organization is important, but I do that in a different way because that's how I think. And one of the things that a writing professor that I had, who said to me, it was the first time anyone told me that. It wasn't until I got to graduate school that she said, you know, these steps that we put forth as a writing process are just meant to be a model. They're just an idea of how you could do it. But if you don't do it exactly the way that it's put in the writing process, which includes outlines, that's okay. You might have a different style of writing. And so part of what I try to encourage my students to do is to think about what works best for you. Okay. So for example, when we say free write or brainstorming, when you're just trying to get some ideas, people do that in different ways. You know, I've had people who do bullet points, just people who just write a whole bunch of thoughts very quickly, without worrying about their grammar, without worrying about, does this sound good? Do I sound, you know, native like, or do I sound organized or smart here? First, you got to think of something to write. And that's an important part. So, I think that some of the best advice I've had given to me is that there's an author, Anne Lamott, who writes professionally, and she says, writing is best if you silence voices of perfectionism. So what that means is don't label yourself a failure before you start. Don't think, oh, well, that's going to be bad. I can't do this. I'm not a good writer. Because even the professional writers so often say that writing begins with terrible first efforts, and that a very, very big part of writing is going through and revising. So I encourage you to think about the ways that you can think about your content first. And this is true not just for English, but you know, if you're writing in Bahasa Indonesia too, we got to have a content first. The big picture ideas. What is your topic? Do you have an objective to write about? Is it descriptive? Is it an argument? Whatever assignment you are giving to students, or whatever piece of writing that you are doing, these bigger picture issues, and we'll talk about that, we call those higher order concerns, are important to give your attention to first and foremost. So these are called higher order concerns in writing versus lower order concerns in writing. So HOCs versus LOCs. And the higher order concerns address your content. All right, so we talk about thesis, which is just a fancy way of saying, you know, your main argument or your idea, your topic for what you're writing about. What are you writing about? As well as any support or explanation you may give to explain your main idea or your argument. the examples that you provide and the using of the sources, are you using them to help support what it is you're saying? Are your ideas organized? Are you transitioning between them? Those are some important things that are what we call higher order concerns. Now, lower order concerns, and again, I know that this is maybe a little bit different, because I think in English language teaching, there's a lot of emphasis on the grammar and mechanics, punctuation, verb tenses, article words, all those things. And it's not saying that those aren't important. They are. But it's saying that before you can get to those things, you first have to have content of things you're talking about. And that is what the higher order concerns are. And I also tell my students very often that it could be a big waste of your time to just go through and fix lower order concerns if you don't have an argument yet, or you didn't understand the assignment and you need to redo it. I mean, you can do it for the practice of practicing your English grammar and mechanics, but it might be something you're going to have to delete, to erase and rewrite anyway. So that's why we ask students to focus on the content of what they're saying first and foremost. Okay. So we talk a lot about revision in writing studies, and I use that word specifically instead of editing, because editing so often is associated with mechanics and grammar, word choice. And revision can be those lower order concerns, but revision can also be the bigger picture issues, the bigger content issues that you are reorganizing a piece of writing, thinking about how it's put together. So one of my favorite quotes, and I think it's very true, is that the act of writing is 10% the actual drafting, the composing of it, and 90% making sure that you've revised it, that you've tuned it, so that it's, you know, the quality writing that you're going for. Now, again, I just want to remind you that these are professional writers who write in English. English is their native language. They think that revision is important. They think that 90% of the time they're trying to make better their writing of what they started with, which were, another author says, really terrible, like when I was little, we call them sloppy copies. I have a favorite author of mine, Anne Lamott, who says it's very, all writing begins with terrible first efforts. And again, I invite my students and I invite you all to think about that, because these are people who make their living, their career off writing. And we would think of them as the best writers, great writers, and they are. But like she says, it's a process, it's hard, and it doesn't just happen. It's not like she's just a professional writer and it comes easy, or everything she writes is beautiful and flawless. No, not even professional writers, and not even native speakers. Okay, so if maybe you take away nothing from today, from what I'm saying, but this, allow yourself to have imperfection in your writing, but keep working at it, keep revising it. But understand that that's a very, very normal part of writing, is revising and working at your writing to get it better, which I'm sure if you've ever had to write a thesis, or like for a program, for, you know, an educational program, you know, it takes a lot of work and a lot of going back and looking at the same piece of writing. So as I said, Anne Lamott says all writing begins with terrible first efforts, and that keep working at it. The more you write, the more comfortable you get with it, the easier it becomes for you. As I said before, I really want to emphasize that revision is bigger and more broad than just editing. And I try to emphasize that to my students too, because so often we think of it as just changing the words, the sentence level, the grammar, the punctuation. So thinking larger about what are you saying? Are your ideas there? Are your claims there, or your support for those claims? Are you explaining the points that you want to make? Those are part of revising. So one of the other things that I emphasize a lot to my students, especially more lately, is that because writing is hard, it's hard, it takes work, and it can be very hard to stare at a blank page and think, oh, I have to get started, and I have writer's block, like, right? Inability to write. I am stuck. I can't write. So I encourage students and anybody who's writing to find what workspace they need, which workspace works best for them. So people work better in different environments. Some people they need silence, they get distracted. Some people like music, or they like to work around other people at a library or a cafe. And some people don't, they get distracted. They need complete silence. I oftentimes ask my students, do you need a snack? Do you need your coffee, your kopi, your teh, your jajan, whatever it is that okay, now I'm going to work. I'm in a good headspace and I'm going to work. Sometimes walking away, writing is hard. And sometimes, as I said, it involves thinking. And my ex-husband used to say to me, I'm going to go write. And then he would go walk around and he would take a shower or go get a snack. And I said, I thought you were writing. And he said, I am. I'm thinking. So sometimes walking away and thinking about your ideas of what you want to write is better, and then coming back to it. One of the other things that I started to emphasize a lot to my students is, because writing involves thinking, and because it involves selecting ideas or topics that you want to write about, sometimes people do that better by talking it through first. So whether you're talking to talking through that with a colleague, or you're having your student talk through to you what they want to write about, that dialogue, that vocalizing of what you might want to write about can be very helpful. So in the United States, we have a lot of writing centers to help students with their writing, their tutors. And a lot of times when students are having a hard time getting started writing, then a tutor will sit with them and talk to them about their topic. What do you want to write about? What are you thinking about? Let's talk about this together. And some students find that very helpful because they have all these good ideas, but they have a hard time getting them out. So for some people, thinking through, talking through can be a very important part of their their writing process of getting started. And we don't think about that maybe as writing, because you're not actually writing. But again, writing is also thinking about what it is you want to write about. So that's an important part of your process too, and allowing yourself that time. So I am a huge fan of writing. I love to write. I love to read other people's writing. And I think that it's also very important for writing teachers. If you're teaching writing, you really ought to be writing yourself, because again, it's a skill and it's a practice. And if we're coaching or educating other students to write, we should be doing that actively as well, so we can understand more of their struggles. We can understand more of ourselves and how we write, and how I think that that's a really important part of, if you want to do writing, you want to teach writing, you really ought to be practicing what you preach, actually doing the writing yourself. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the other benefits of writing. So I think that it's also important to realize that, you know, writing can be very helpful for you to understand what you think. And I try to encourage my students to think about writing that way too. So Joan Didion is an author, and she is quoted as saying, "I write so I can know what I think." And another very famous American author, Flannery O'Connor, wrote, "I write because I don't know what I think until I read what I say." And say in this way, she means what she's read what she's written. So writing can be very helpful to help you articulate your ideas, whether that's creatively or whether that's an essay that you're writing. I think that writing, it can be very therapeutic in that, you know, are you angry at somebody? You write out your feelings. Some people write a diary or a journal, and even that practice of keeping writing helps people improve their writing, and it also helps them to sort through ideas of what they think about things. So in my university seminars, I always have my students do journals with the readings that we have to do, so that they can be processing, thinking through what they think about what we've read, and also writing out. So they're practicing their writing, and they're also thinking about what we have read. So I've heard some people say that when they write about their challenges, about their struggles, then it helps too. So I think it has benefits aside from just perfect English or academic essay writing too, because writing also can involve poetry and literature and stories, as well as more scholarship, like the articles that Anita showed us. The more you write, the more comfortable you get with it, and the easier it will become. And again, I'm not saying this from the perspective of an English language educator, because that's not my area, but I do believe very strongly that allowing yourself the practice and allowing yourself time to do it, and to do it without expecting it to be perfect the first time or the second time or the third time, but that you keep working at writing, and you keep working at a specific piece of writing, is really how you become a better writer. So when I think about writing, you know, we can also think about ways we can keep track of our experiences, travel logs. Writing can also help you share your family stories, keep your traditions and your stories from your nanak and your grandpa and grandma alive. Writing down your stories to share with your children and your grandchildren. There are lots of ways in which we can make writing more a part of, it can be fun writing, it can be from our experiences as well. That type of writing also has value, has benefit as well. So I am happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Daniele.
Yes.
For sharing the knowledge. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I taught you before, that if you want to ask questions to our three great speakers, please drop your questions on the chat box. Then the committee will choose the first question is from Pak Devan Kune. He is an English teacher he wants to ask question. Dr. Daniele. The question is, how to change the beginner's perspective or mindset from writing to write, because they think that writing is the most difficult thing in learning English. Daniel, can you answer the question?
After I unmute myself, I can. I think that it is hard. You know, it just is. Writing is hard. But I think
okay, I will repeat the questions.
Okay.
Hello, Daniel. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Willie, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yabes, repeat the
Yeah.
question. Yabes, please repeat the question.
Sorry.
Repeat the question, please.
Daniel, can you hear me?
Yes, she can.
Yes, I can.
Can you hear me, Daniel?
I think it's the signal.
Yes, she can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Again,
Yes.
I'll repeat the questions to
Yes.
Dr. Daniele from Pak Devan.
Mm.
The question is how to change the mindset of the beginners, of English learners, to start writing, because they are thinking that writing is the most difficult part in learning English.
Yeah. What I would say is allow them to have opportunities to
Hello, Bu
do.
Daniele.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Please carry on.
Okay. So I would say that it's good to give them what we call low stakes assignments. And what that means is opportunities just to write, where they're going to be able to write something fun. I sometimes try to get them to, you know, write from their own experiences or their own voice, their own things that they know already, that they feel comfortable with. Tell me a story about your family. Tell me a story about your culture, because it's more fun for them when they feel like they know what they're writing about, when they feel like they have something to say. And so I think sometimes allowing them to just write something that they know helps to make it more fun, because you can't really say to them, no, you're wrong, if this is your story and your experience. And what I mean by low stakes writing is it's important to give students an opportunity to just write without having it be graded with a red pen, because that's very intimidating to get a piece of paper. You put so much effort into writing, and then you get this paper back and it's all marked up with red. You know, we've all had that experience, you know, and you're like, oh, I feel badly out. Look at all that I did wrong. And it can be a useful thing to just have students write, even if you're not going to correct their grammar. It will be more fun for them, and it will be more helpful for them, because they're getting an opportunity to just write out their ideas and practice writing without feeling like they're going to be, everything that they've written is wrong grammatically, they're going to be judged. So I start, like I said, I start with stories, or, you know, let's do a joke. let's tell a funny story. All of that is practicing writing, and you can make it fun. I also try to involve some social media, so to show students, you know, you do types of writing, and we can try to, those are some of the ways that I've tried to make it more fun and more accessible. And I think it helps to not demand perfection, the low stakes writing, so just opportunities to write, and writing stories, personal experiences, or what we call narratives in writing studies, is a way to make it more fun than, okay, all the writing you do is just a research paper or just an essay for, an English class. That is less fun, but it's still good for them to write even stories. So they're practicing writing.
Well, thank you, Ibu Daniela, for the answer. The next question is addressed to Pak Willy. The question is from Pak Nani Songkares from SMA Seminary Mataloko in Flores Island. The question is, how long do the students need to continue listening on regular basis on average until they are able to speak quite good English, Pak Willy?
Okay. It's a very good question. How long? A quick answer will be as long as possible. But minimally, I would think minimally for 6 months. If they do it regularly on a daily basis, spending half an hour a day, for example, listening and maybe watching interesting movies, I think in 6 months' time, they will begin to be able to produce the language, quite easily. But if you want to develop a higher level of proficiency, I think you need to, do it at a slightly longer, maybe 1 year or maybe 2 years. Don't look at it as study. Don't look at it as studying. You're not studying, actually. You are enjoying, you are having a great time. You are watching your favorite movies and you do it again, spending half an hour or maybe 1 hour a day. I spend 1 hour a day at least watching my favorite Netflix movies. It's a lot of fun. And while you are having a lot of fun, actually your brain learns a lot of things as well. A lot of new information, plus a lot of language that is used by the speakers, by the actors in the movie. So it's a win-win kind of situation. If you don't look at it as work, I think your students will enjoy doing it, a lot more. It's learning by doing. It's, you're being rewarded for having fun, actually. So spend half a year, 6 months, or even 1 year, or even forever. I mean, it's very entertaining, actually. So that'd be my advice to almost everyone. Yes, Pak Nani Songkares, thank you very much for your question.
Thank you very much, Pak Willy.
Good to see you on the screen.
Yeah, may I add up one more question connected to this, Pak Willy?
Yes.
I have an experience of letting the students individually to have listening. And after 1 year, I noticed that there's a very significant progress in their proficiency.
Absolutely, yeah.
But then recently, I tried to help students in group, especially when after I found your article written in your book with Ibu Yvonne Francisca talking about the importance of listening. And I tried to set up the students in group. I don't know whether it can happen. Thank you, Pak Willy.
Yes. Let me just add one thing. There's a very good relationship between listening and speaking. People or students who listen a great deal are more likely to develop a higher level of speaking skill as well. But this listening may not always apply to helping students developing their writing skill. I think Daniel talks about writing. If you want your students to develop their writing skill, in addition to doing a lot of practice, as Daniel suggested, I think you should also get your students to do a lot of reading. So the idea is that reading leads to writing. Students who do a lot of reading are more likely to develop a higher ability in writing as well. And to get your students started, I think what you need to do is to provide students with a lot of model, sample, writing pieces. show them this model and let them play with this model a little bit. They may not be able to produce their own essay yet, but they can probably change some of the sentences in the model text. They can add maybe one paragraph somewhere in the middle, or they can add another paragraph towards the end of the model text. So that is one way to make writing a little bit more less challenging and also more enjoyable. I agree fully with Daniel. Writing is very hard. It's tough. You need to do it very often. But for students with very little background in terms of content and in terms of language, writing becomes extremely, extremely difficult. But you have to start somewhere. Find something that is doable. Find something, a writing activity that is more manageable from your student's perspective.
Thank you very much, Pak Willy.
Yeah. Yes, more questions, please. Easy questions for me and difficult questions for Ibu Anita. Daniel.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Pak Willy, for your answer. Well, another question to Pak Willy from Ibu Regina Jaga from Widya Mandira Catholic University in
Widya Mandala.
Widya Mandira.
No, Mandala. Is it Widya Mandira or Mandala?
Widya Mandira in Kupang.
Oh, in Kupang. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was in Surabaya.
Yes.
Yeah.
The question is how to overcome the challenges of students' cultural background, like mother tongue influences in listening, since the speaker or teachers we are hearing are pronouncing all the word in English accent that make the students feel struggle, Pak Willy.
Yeah. Yes, I can understand where the question is coming from. Yes, accents can be difficult. Accent can be problematic, but I think it's just a matter of getting used to. For example, Pak Yabes, the way he speaks Bahasa Indonesia, I'm not used to. So I'm struggling a little bit. But if I spend time having tea and coffee with him, maybe for one whole month, I will find it easy, to understand, his Bahasa Indonesia. So it's just a matter of getting used to. And Ibu Anita gave a great example of how we can help our students to get used to comprehending, used to listening, used to different accents. And I think today we need to be, you need to learn how to understand people from different countries in the world, not just people from the UK or from the US or from Australia, but also people from Singapore, people from Japan, and people from China. When they speak English, do we understand them? If we don't, just listen again. I mean, that would be my best advice. Listen again several times, listen again, and then you will be, able to comprehend with ease and greater fluency as well. So it's a matter of getting used to. Don't blame your mother tongue. Please don't. And don't blame your culture. Please don't. Your culture has nothing to do with it. And your mother tongue has nothing to do with it. If anything, your culture and your mother tongue are what enable you to learn anything new, whether it's language or whether anything else. Yeah. So my advice to us all is please embrace your mother tongue. Please do not blame your culture. Your culture is excellent, it's wonderful. Your mother tongue is beautiful. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Pak Willy. Well, another question is addressed to Ibu Daniele. The questions from Nesren Ishak from Saidina Hasan Secondary School. There are two simple questions. They are, how do you teach your students to revise their writing, Ibu Daniel? And do you have any systematic techniques?
Sure. So we spend some time talking about different points of focus in improving writing. So like that list I gave you, transitions and support for claims and those things, we talk about them. I would echo Pat Willy that they do well with examples too. And what I do with my students, and it takes time, but you get to be a better writer. I give them a lot of written feedback, not just correcting their grammar, but asking them to think through their ideas. I challenge them to think about things differently. And so I see there's another question from Hermania. I would also say that that's one of the ways I try to encourage them to critically think through their writing, is I ask them questions about what it is they're writing about. So rather than looking at it as a piece to just be corrected for all the errors because I'm a teacher, instead I try to talk to them about their writing and give them feedback on it, so that they can have opportunities to learn how to improve their writing. And I think that as a writing teacher, that's hard. One of the things I've noticed is that writing teachers just go in and fix all of the grammar because it's easier. It takes a lot more effort to talk about their ideas, but that's an important part of getting them to think about their content and their ideas and to improve on writing. So as I said, I would give feedback to students. I would and opportunities to talk about how they can improve their writing beyond just grammar. And I would use that list of the higher order concerns and look at your students' papers. How is the organization here? Does it make sense? Do they have, are their ideas organized? Those sorts of things. I would use those as a guidance to help us to not always just focus on grammar, too, that we're really teaching them how to think about writing holistically. So.
Thank you.
Journals to my students. And I would say too, like a reading blog too, like that's another way to encourage students to improve in reading as well, and in thinking, do reading outside of class. And there's a lot of examples of writing about writing, we call it meta writing, writing about writing, that can also be assigned. And I am happy to provide other resources for those things. I have ideas. So if Mr. Yabes will give my email, and I can help in that regard. Some pieces where they're reading about skills of writing.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Daniel. The next question is addressed to Ibu Anita. The question is from Pak Nani Songkares from SMA Seminari Mata Loco Flores. The question is, could you please share the significant progress in students' proficiency of English? Because it seems that you are using ER Central for more than years, Ibu Anita.
Okay, thank you for the question, Pak Nani. Actually, yeah, we have been using ER Central more than a year, but for the course itself, it only takes 1 semester. So every student will experience using ER Central only for about maybe around 10 to 14 weeks. And then after they complete the, after the extensive listening class ends, then they don't use ER Central anymore. But in terms of progress in proficiency, yes, I think I should say there is a significant progress. So like Pak Willy has shared before, so after, I can see that the students can speak better. They can be aware of the pronunciation because they've been exposed with the listening. And although probably it's not directly related, but after the students listen to text, we ask them to write a journal. And here I can also see that the students can use the words in their journal writing. They can play more with words. So, and that is from listening, because while they are listening, they can also read text. So like what I have shown you before. So when the students listening to a text, and then at the same time, they are also reading the text. And I can see that it is, from the journals, they can play with words. Yeah. So, but 10 weeks or 10 weeks and up to maybe 12 or 14 weeks. So it's really hard to say as like a very significant progress. Yeah. But I can only say that they make progress. Students make progress because they are forced to listen to text, and they are forced to read the text as well. So there is progress there. Okay, I think that's all I can say to you. I can share, Pak Nani.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Bu Anita, for the answers. Another question addressed to Ibu Anita and Pak Willy from Ibu Adolfina from Tunas Bangsa Christian School. The question is that, does the age of learners affect the process of listening and capturing English vocabulary, Pak Willy and Ibu Anita?
Yes, Anita, go ahead.
Sorry, what is the question once again?
Age, usia, age. Does age have anything to do?
Age have anything to do?
With language learning, with listening, reading, writing, speaking.
I probably will not say age, but maybe it's more on the language proficiency that the students have. Correct me if I'm wrong, Pak Willy. So if the beginner learners, yes, they need to be exposed to the appropriate language input appropriate to their level, and then they will increase in terms of language proficiency.
Yes, this is a very interesting topic. And interestingly, many people believe that age is important, that the younger you start learning English, learning pronunciation or listening, speaking, reading, writing, the better. I think it is a misconception. We now know that age has very little to do with language learning, with language acquisition. If you look around, there are many adults, there are many older students, or even older people who learn a new language and they have no problem. I think what is important, I think we now know from research, what is important is, number one, do you have the time to do it? And number two, do you have the commitment to do it? And number three, even more important than that, is to what extent are you willing to be exposed to the language on a regular basis, spending maybe half an hour a day reading and listening. And then having spent 1 year doing listening and reading, are you willing to try to make use of the language in some way by communicating with other people? So if we follow the process, I don't think age is going to make a big difference. Yes, age may have an advantage when it comes to pronunciation. That's true. I think it's physiologically younger children find it easier to say different words, different accents very easily compared to adult learners of English. But other than that, the advantage disappears, actually. In fact, older people learn anything faster, including learning English, faster than young children. And older students can develop a higher level of proficiency in the language. So age has very little to do. But the question then is, should you be sending your young children to language schools? The answer is, why not? Yes, if you have the money and resources, you know, if you don't want to be bothered by your kids running around at home, send them to language schools. I mean, there's no problem with that. But if you expect your young children to acquire a lot of language, I think we should think again, because age has nothing to do with it. Yeah. So does age influence your ability to understand the language? I don't think so. No. It is frequency of exposure. It's amount of exposure to the language that influences your listening comprehension, nothing else. Yeah, Bess.
Yeah, Willy. Yes, thank you for the great answers from our great speakers. So, well, ladies and gentlemen, because we have limitation of time, so the questions we raised before are the chosen question from the committee. So I think we are now at the end of the first session. So we are going to go further on to the next session. And then for the next session, the moderator will be Fitri, in order to guide you for listening to our two great speakers who are going to share their knowledge about speaking and reading. So Fitri, the time is yours.
Well, thank you very much for the first moderator for giving me opportunity. Good afternoon, everyone. The honorable all great speakers and all participants. So before I come further, I want to check whether you can hear my voice or see me well.
Yes,
again,
loud and
hello
clear.
everyone.
Yes, loud and clear.
You also may type the answer in the chat box. Can you hear my voice well?
Yes, very clear.
Well, thank you very much. Based on your answer, I'm really sure that everyone can hear my voice well and see me clearly. Well, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to introduce myself. My full name is Fitriani Banunaek. I am an English student from English Education Program of Stkip Soe Semester 4. And it is a very special occasion for me to be your moderator for the next session in today's international webinar under the theme for Skills in Harmony. We just have listened to some great speakers with interesting and informative presentation about two skills, listening and writing. And then how to teach or learn those skills in interesting way. However, now we will also come to the next session in which there will be two left skills. Those are reading and speaking that will be explained by two masters in each skill with fruitful material too. So let me introduce and welcome our two great speakers. The third speaker who will share knowledge on reading skill is Miss Teresia Theodora Benganola S.Pd. Hello, Miss Teresia.
Hi, hello.
Thank you so much. And then the fourth speaker who will share knowledge on speaking skill is Ibu Heidy Wulandari S.Pd M.Hum. Hello, Ibu Heidy.
Hello, everyone.
Well, thank you so much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now I will tell you how this session will be going on. First, the third speaker will be invited to present her material, and it will be directly continued by the fourth speaker. Then after all speakers have delivered their material, we will come to the next session is question and answer session. However, during the third or the fourth speaker are delivering their material, all participants are allowed to type question in chat box, and then the committee will choose appropriate question, and I, as the moderator, will read for the speakers to answer. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now we are going to listen to the fruitful information by the third speaker, Ms. Teresia Theodora Bengan-Ola S.Pd. Ms. Teresia Theodora Bengan-Ola S.Pd, she is a founder, Chief Operating Officer or COO, and English teacher of Eruditia Official. Eruditia Official is an online educational platform intended to help Indonesian students with foreign language master or English scholarship preparation, and also English proficiency test preparation, IELTS and TOEFL. She has ever been a staff of curriculum department at BPK Penabur Jakarta since 2017 up to 2020, and also a head of teacher and COO of Education Centrum from 2020 up to 2021. She holds a bachelor degree from Sanata Dharma University, Yogyakarta in English Education Study Program and Bennett College, North Carolina, USA as a Student Award of Fulbright Scholarship under Global Undergraduate Exchange Program. Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, you just have heard some background information of this speaker. She is a really great person with brilliant knowledge related to reading skill. So, without any further ado, for Ms. Teresia Theodora Bengan-Ola S.Pd, floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Fitriani Banunaik, as like a really great moderator introducing me and stuff. Well, hello everyone. Hi. As you have known my name there, my name is Ria. Actually, that's my calling, my nickname, to be honest. And then you don't have to call me like with a really long name of Teresia and something. Just call me Ria. Okay, that's how people usually call me. Well, before then, let's do the shared screen over here. Right, it's reading time. Okay, that's the thing which people usually consider their hobby, but also the thing that people do not usually fond of, because reading is something which is particularly daunting at times, could also be really interesting. I'm pretty sure you guys may have encountered reading before, like reading is usually all around us, right? Especially also, as I have noticed since the very first and second speakers of today's conference, that it is about listening and also about writing, and also have noticed like some of the audiences here that you guys are from students as well. Also here are like teachers and lecturers, so like a great range of audience. But then today I'm going to tell you about reading, but let me ask you some questions. Maybe we can use the comment column there, bagian chatnya. So if you guys, I'm going to ask you some questions, and then please just type on the chat comment, yeah, on the chat column. Let's start with the first question. From the scale of 1 to 10, with 10 as the highest rate, how much do you love reading? Give me a number. Come on, put it on chat. Oh, 10, that's amazing. Okay, Nazreen, 8, Rob, 9, 10. Okay, Mactil, sorry if I pronounce your names wrong. Okay, Jane, 8, Devin, 9, John, 7. Any other? Mita, 9, Marine, 6, Nani, 9. Okay, right, super. Fitriani, 10. That's amazing. That's amazing. Like everyone is above 5, which is amazing. Super. Okay, let's go to the next question. Next question. What is your favorite genre of reading? So there's a lot of genre, right? Like romance, fictions, non-fiction books, articles, journals, that kind of thing. So what is your favorite genre? Any type of books, okay. So I can like assume you love both fiction and non-fictional books, right? Super. Mystery, thriller, okay. Scientific, nice. Fiction, personal development, right? Fiction, biography, okay. Any other? Right. I still have some other questions. Let's go next. Do you have any favorite author? Oh, medical fiction, spatial novels, and poetry, great. If yes, who? Have any? Anyone? Nick Hornby, okay. Who else? Firsa Besari, okay. Andrew Clemens, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, okay. Who else? Eriska Febrian, right. Siapa lagi? Okay, Jose Rizal, okay, if I'm not pronouncing it word. Any other? Right, thank you. Thank you for responding, I really appreciate it. The next question, Maria Matildis Banda. Okay, perhaps this is Eastern Indonesian author. That's amazing. And there's this one more question. Do you always make time to read? Despite how busy you guys are? Okay. Yes. Okay. John Grissom, I know him. Right. What about the others? Do you always make time to read? Yes. Always make time to read, despite how busy you guys are. I mean, like everyone is busy. Like we know that. We have busy teaching schedule. Then when we go home, we will have children waiting for us, right? And do you always have time? Okay, because it's needed, right? Try, okay, that's cool. You try to make some time. That's cool, let's go. Next question. Do you need to keep your vocabulary ready when reading English texts or books? Or do you just like keep reading without probably trying to find out difficult words or something? May I know about that? Yes, okay. John, Fitriani, yes. Okay, any other? Sometimes, but keep on reading, yeah? Okay, Yani. I skip difficult words and try to get the meaning context. Also, you try to find it from the contextual meaning. So like see it from the contextual perspective. That's cool. If I don't know, then I will use dictionary, right? Right. Okay. So like most of you will say yes. Oh, one last question. Keep reading, and I do use online dictionary when in doubt. Okay. I have one last question here. Do you have a lot of reading assignments from your lectures? In case you are guys, students, you can say, do you have reading assignments from your lectures? Or if you guys are teachers, you can say, do you give a lot of reading assignments to your students? Tell me about it. I know. If you guys are teachers, you can just say, do you give a lot of reading assignments to your students? If you are students, can you tell me, do you have a lot of reading assignments from your lecturers? I'm the one who give out the reading assignments. Okay, let's read, right? Anyone? Come on. Any other? Nope, I make materials of reading. Simple one. Okay, cool. A lot, right? With an exclamatory mark. So of course, no doubt about that. I received many reading assignments. Okay. Received many reading assignments. So who are here, the lecturers probably could reflect on that, giving the reading assignments to the students. Okay, super. Thank you so much for responding to the questions. I really appreciate it. Let me just give this one quote from my favorite author. This one person is like very, very popular. I'm pretty sure you guys know her. Of course, like the author of the phenomenal Harry Potter novels, okay, J.K. Rowling. Let me just give this one quote of her, which is very, very popular and so much into me. I never need to find time to read. When people say to me, oh yeah, I love reading, I would love to read, but I just don't have time. I'm thinking, how can you not have time? I read when I'm drying my hair. I read in the bath. I read that I'm sitting in the bathroom. Pretty much anywhere I can do the job one-handed, I read. Okay. So that's one thing that I personally admire about this person, that she always finds time to read. But it could be different when it comes to reading scientific things. because what we receive from our lectures or what we give to the students are mostly scientific readings like articles, journals, or perhaps things which require more time to read. So let's get to it, everyone. Okay, you guys have known it already from the moderators. I'm gonna just skip this. Well, it's general reading advice that I'm gonna give you. But before we go on, let me just talk a little bit about myself. That currently I'm in Denpasar and I am doing this like an what is it, an educational platform for students who like getting prepared for their IELTS or TOEFL things. And I'm originally from Adonara. I'm pretty sure you guys may have known about Adonara. That's from NTT, of course. Like also this place is based in NTT, so I'm pretty sure you guys know where it is. Well, and this is such a great honor for me to be actually invited to be the speaker here. So I do hope that for these materials that I'm going to deliver, you may get some important points that you can implement either in your classes to your students, or also if you are students, then you can implement it to your own reading approach and skills. Well, I have some general reading advice first for all of you. In case talking about reading sometimes could be difficult, could be daunting, of course, when we come to encounter English articles or scientific journals which require more and more time to read. If we have like fictional books, sometimes we just enjoy the plot and like we can directly follow how it is going and like the settings and everything intrinsic parts of the novels. But when it comes to articles and scientific journals, sometimes it's a little bit hard. So let me just give you general reading advice. First, let's do some reflection. This is for those of you who are in universities, or if you are students or college lecturers and stuff, just give it a reflection first. First, we need to see what we read, right? So we might be expected to read a wide range of texts. Include the course reading pack, could be lecture slides, journal articles, internet articles, fictional books and stuff, newspapers, research report, literature reviews, and so many things about the things that we are going to read. So of course, we need to find out what we read. The next is why we read it. Is it only for entertaining purposes? Or get up what they will read and why they will read this. Okay, then also what reading abilities that they will need, the students will need, of course. So beyond being simply to understand the plot and stuff, but then we will also need to be able to critique the reading text, evaluate them, compare and contrast them, apply the information that we find useful from the reading text. You need to be able to identify all of this to your students, what they will read, why they read this kind of text, and what reading abilities that they will need to use and need during reading the text. Next, how to read effectively. So first of all, consider when you guys read. And this is actually works for either students or lecturers. Whenever you guys read, make sure that you need to consider the time of reading. You can read in a place free of distractions. Just don't read in bed while lying down. This is also one like particular thing you can tell your students to, or also tell yourself that if you out of the text, then do not read while lying down. Of course, in case you want to go ahead and sleep, then don't focalize as you read. Sometimes some people just find reading more focused by vocalizing, like reading out loud. But then this is not the one that I'm going to suggest because this will slow you down. Reading by vocalizing the text as you read, it will slow you down and it won't help with the concentration because instead of focusing on the information inside the text, you will be focusing more on your pronunciation instead, because that is the different approach of you read. So if you want to read because you need to find the information inside the text and don't vocalize as you read, but if you just want to read to practice your pronunciation, then do so. Okay. Next is maintain concentration. So if you guys want to read, then take a regular short breaks. Do not like force yourself to be in front of the text or in front of the books for the entire day. Make yourself a break every 30 or 45 minutes inside. Set reading tasks. You need to give a target to yourself and also to your students. So just in one day, for example, you need to finish 10 pages or one chapter or one section of a chapter. So you need to set a target, to set a reading tasks to your students or to yourself. Okay, it would make the reading more effectively. Then also give enough time. Make time, as what I mentioned before. Reading may take longer than expected, and you often need to go beyond the set text. So maybe we have set a target that I want to do only 10 pages in a day, but then sometimes it may take longer than that because you need more time to acquire the text, to get to know more information about the text, and also to understand the words in the text in case the reading text you are facing is English texts or books. Right. So now here I'm going to tell you some reading strategies that you can implement yourself, or you can also set it up to your students. Okay. First of all, the thing about reading, because not so many people love reading, or sometimes they say, oh yes, my hobby is reading, but they don't spend enough time to read just because they will make excuses of, oh, I am so busy, I cannot read today. Or perhaps they would just say, I have a lot of things to do, I have no time to read. So many excuses. But they will say, I love reading. The thing is, if you are a lecturer or a teacher, or if you are students, of course, you will need to read a lot, okay? Reading from fictional books or non-fictional books, a lot of things that you would have to encounter, because by reading more and more, of course, we will get more comprehension out of the information we want to gain. And also by reading more and more, we are shaping this ability of us to share the information we have found from the reading tests. So what you can implement the strategies, first of all, purposeful reading. Okay. So what is this about? When reading something, so the text that you are assigning your students to, either textbook questions, tutorial questions, you would need to assign your students, or perhaps to assign yourself, to create questions and consider what you already know beforehand. Like before you read this, okay, what things I have known about the topic? You consider that first, you know some parts, but then that's how you will acquire and know that, oh, there are some parts that I have just known by reading this book. Create questions also of why I am reading this, what information I need to find. So then be very clear about exactly what you are looking for. Okay, so you don't like, if this is for something purposeful, be clear about what you are looking for. Don't just read aimlessly. It's a waste of time. You're not gonna gain anything out of reading the book for sure. Purposeful reading can help you read faster because you know exactly what you're looking for, and it's gonna be more selectively. It also can help your concentration and your ability to remember, because you go to find the information that you really need. Okay, so find the purpose of why I am reading something. So is it only for fun, just for entertaining purpose, or is it for gaining some information out of this? Like you need to, analyze the text perhaps, or you would need to answer the questions from the teachers maybe. So make a purpose, yeah. Next, okay, give me a second. Right, next is scanning and skimming. I'm so sure you guys have known this like really well. And I'm really sure too that you teachers have always said to your students that, okay, you can do skimming and scanning, but what they are actually, right? So if you do scanning, scanning is like you read quickly to search for specific information. And one reason to scan an academic text, if you are facing an academic text, that you have found while researching is to locate key terms as a means to assess the text's relevance. And actually, without we realize, we have done scanning a lot. So when you are, for example, checking on a TV guide, or when you are trying to read tutorials from something, you do scanning. And also, because you're just trying to find and locate the keywords, the things that would help you to, or to guide you to do things, okay? And when you do skimming, it's you read quickly to gain a general idea. So skimming does not involve reading every word for sure, because sometimes when you do skimming, you only like read the titles or the subheadings or the words that are in bold, the diagrams, reports and abstract, the first sentence of each paragraph perhaps, or the chapter questions or the chapter objectives or the chapter summaries. So it could be anything, but you do skimming, means you read quickly. So this is also what you need to apply to your students. When you actually set a reading assignment to your students, then you guys as students or as teachers also can apply these strategies that do skimming and scanning are really important when it comes to reading. If what you are trying to do is to find out the information out of the reading books or texts instead of reading for fun or like fictional books or something, okay? Right, so I'm gonna try this. This is like the skimming and scanning one that usually is so popular on the internet. Maybe you have encountered this on the internet, everyone. Perhaps I'm gonna ask one person to help me doing this. Maybe let me just ask this one person. Okay, this is one thing. Okay, pasti udah pernah ketemu ini di internet. Like looking from the spelling, this is actually not really. This is not a good spelling. Yeah, they are all wrong. But without we realize that we can actually read this quite well. Ada yang mau coba baca?
Yes, I want to try.
Okay, who is this? Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. Right, go ahead. Come on.
Interesting fact. According to the research at an English university, it doesn't matter in what order the letters in a word are. The only important thing is that the first and the last letter is at the right place. The rest can be a total mess and you can still read it without a problem. This is because we do not read every letter, but it left but the words as a whole. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And that's how we do skimming and scanning, because we just like try to find out information and sometimes we just can skip the spelling and stuff. And all we need to just gaining the information as what the text is saying, because we don't read every letter by itself, but the word as a whole. But it doesn't mean that the spelling is not important. Yeah, of course not. It's just like the way we read. And that's what I want you guys to keep in mind as well when we're reading things, and also the things that you can tell your students about. Okay, next, sorry, it's information words. So also the things that you can tell your students or tell yourself is when you read, you can just focus on the information words. No more than 50% of the words in the average textbook are information words. Some are just like connections. They are just like words who look like glue and paint. You know, like it's just connections. This is connecting words. Those are just discourse markers to help the fluency of the reading or of the writing itself. But information words is no more than 50%. Why? Here's the thing. If you can concentrate on information, on words, information words itself, you can read faster and with better comprehension. How? How to do that? How do we know that these are the information words? So look for the message of the authors and the information words will emerge naturally. So what exactly the author are trying to say through their text, to the scientific text or journals that we are reading. So if we just try to focus on the messages of the author, then like when we read it, we can just focus on one or two words out of the whole passage or out of the whole paragraph, which are the information words. Let's try this. Okay, I'm gonna give you a question. Can you get a sense of the general meaning by only reading the information words featured? These are the information words. So let me just ask one person to read this for all of us. Ada yang mau volunteer? Just read this. Read and try to find whether you get the general meaning by reading these words. Anyone? Maybe I'm gonna point one person. What is it? Adolfina Pairikas. Hello. Okay. No, right. Let me see. What about, because I have noticed you several times, Nani Songkares? Hello, Mr. Nani. Test.
Oh,
Hi. Hi, sir. Okay. Would you mind reading this for us?
I don't know how to read.
You just read the words. Those are information words. Yeah, just read them out.
Success attracting boyfriend, girlfriend, effect, this advertisement encourage, false idea, success, genuine success earned, effort, not money.
Okay, thank you, sir. So when you guys read this, thank you so much, sir. So when you guys read this, these are information words. Success, attracting boyfriend, girlfriend, effect, this advertisement, encourage false ideas of success, genuine success, earned effort, not money. Okay, when you read those out, actually we can just we get the sense of the general meaning of this paragraph, because that the success usually can attract boyfriend, girlfriend things, right? Because we have money when we are successful. But then this advertisement of being successful encourage a false idea. That's actually genuine success earns by doing effort, not because of the money itself. So this kind of thing, these are information words. So if you can like figure out the information words out of the text, then we can get the general and the sense of the general meaning of the word, okay? Or of the text itself. Right, and the next part is analytical reading. Analytical reading or study reading is needed when you want to make sure that you fully grasp and appreciate what you are reading. Sometimes it requires more time to do this analytical reading. You may have to read statements more than once. Stop to think about them and jot down the keywords when using the style. As a result, your reading rate, usually perhaps you can easily drop to below 100 words a minute. It could be, lower than that or below that, because you need to, even only one sentence, you can think and try to understand, try to find, to grasp the idea out of the sentence. So let's just read the following for an example of when slow, careful reading may be needed. Okay, let me just read this out for you guys. Dan apakah teman-teman bisa langsung dapat idenya? Can you directly find the idea of me only reading this one time? One of the first things that should be done in the evaluation of structural equation models is an assessment of the adequacy of input data and the statistical assumption underlying any estimation methods used in the analysis. Blank. I don't know what they are saying, so I need to read it again. Okay, this one particular statement requires analytical reading. We need to read it again. Only one simple sentence, one complex sentence actually, but only one sentence. but still it's not like directly get to us once we read it and we directly like get to know what this particular statement is telling, right? Like we need to read it again and again to get the information, right? And next, of course, marking the text. I do this a lot when I was still a student. Even now, when I was reading journal and stuff, marking the text, okay? This process of marking text can help you concentrate and keep reading, can help you identify key points and make the book easier to survey later when you need to use it again for your assignment. I do this a lot when I was still a student of senior high school, when I was still a senior high school teacher back then, was in 2020, if I'm not mistaken. I did this reading assignment to my students, but what I wanted to see out of them was how they mark the text. So how they can make connection out of this sentence, and then they can paraphrase it. They write things before the text so that I can see that I clearly understand what the sentence is saying, because they mark the text and they like put notes and stuff beside the text. They give a yellow color, blue color. And when I ask them, what do you mean by this yellow color? What do you mean by this blue color? They know exactly what they are because they read it analytically, comprehensively, and they know exactly what it is about. You can give that one assignment to your students as well. Ask them to read a text and see how they mark the text. And note-taking, for sure. Note-taking can help you gain deeper understanding and reflection, a better ability to remember, and good exam preparation materials for later, like for sure. Like if we have this one book of our own, I'm so sure you guys may have experienced this as well. We have a lot of note-taking, put a lot of, what is it called? Sticky notes. Yeah, put a stick notes one in our books when we read things, right? So also by doing this note-taking, you can also record the publication details if you need to find out the information out of scientific journals or articles or theses or dissertations perhaps. Record the publication details, preview the text before you take notes and stuff. You can maintain a central place for your notes, paraphrase and summarize ideas. That's the domain of note-taking for sure. Note your thoughts. Okay, so for example, this author gives her opinion this way, and then how can you come and counter the idea by giving your own thoughts related to the ideas you get from the text, and also review the own notes you're making. Right, managing vocabulary. So if you are reading an English text or English books, you can keep a list of a new word. Yeah, record the definition, write the example sentences which show the meaning and usage. Because if people say, oh, we can just gain new vocabulary by memorizing them. If you memorize it today, you will forget it tomorrow. Why? Because you don't use it. But if you read a text and you gain new vocabulary out of the text, you note them down, you find the definition, you make an example sentences of those words, it will be more to be remembered than only memorizing them and just ta-da, not using them again, and you're not gonna remember it tomorrow. Okay, so manage the vocabulary. You can have like a list of vocabulary you get from the new text you are reading. Reading with your students, like put them into groups, like making them a study buddy or a study group. So you can assign them to be careful to keep focused on what they need to do. They can like sharing notes. They can explain things to their students, to their peers, right? Asking and quizzing each other. You can increase the ability to understand, reflect upon, and remember key points in text. So like your assignment to your students to give a reading assignment, like for example, a text, then within them, you just assign them to share notes within each other, ask each other, quiz each other. So all of them in one particular group can get and understand the text even better because they read it and they get thoughts from their friends. Okay, right? So that's all what I can say about reading. I will be later welcome for any questions related to this. Just in case you guys need to reach me and stuff, you can contact me through this email later. I guess also the committee will share with you the materials of today's presentation of mine, so then guys can contact me and stuff if you need more from me about reading. Okay, so I guess that's all. I'm turning it back to Fitri Bananaik. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Teresia Theodora Benganola S.Pd, for the interesting presentation with valuable knowledge about reading skill. I really believe that this material will stuck well on everyone's brain and actually can be useful in our reading skill, and also how to teach our students in such attractive steps and methods that has been explained. Well, ladies and gentlemen, before we continue, I want to remind all participants, don't forget to fill the attendance list that have been shared by the committee in chat room. Okay, after listening to those 3 skills before, I am pretty sure that we have got many valuable knowledge from the master of each skill. However, speaking skill as the last skill we are going to listen to also has the same important skills as those 3 skills before. That is why I do believe that everyone will not feel bored to listen to this material. As I said before, that in this very special occasion, we already have the master of speaking skill who will deliver any fruitful and beneficial knowledge for us. She is Ibu Heidy Wulandari S.Pd M.Hum. Ibu Heidy Wulandari is a lecturer in English study program of Stkip Soe. She holds a bachelor degree from Nusa Cendana University and masteral degree from Sanata Dharma University. She ever taught in Maritime Vocational School, Swift English School, Smart Plus English Center, and Pleased English School around 2012 until 2018. Currently, she is teaching transactional speaking in English department of Stkip Soe. She is also cooperating with Eruditia Official to teach IELTS and Universitas Terbuka to teach English to primary school teacher students. Her interest is in English education, especially English speaking, teaching and learning, language acquisition, language and culture, and also phonology. She also writes books, including English books and short story books, as well as writing articles in English education and linguistic journals. Outstanding. Based on her background career, we can see that Ibu Heidy is such a great person who has huge knowledge and experience about speaking skill. So, without any further, for Ibu Heidy Wulandari S.Pd M.Hum, time is yours.
All right. So thank you very much, Fitri, for giving me chance to talk about speaking skill. So wait a moment, I'm going to share my material first. Okay, so can it be seen clearly? Just let me know by typing your answer on the chat box.
Yes, very clear.
Okay, so now let's just start. Well, the theme of the webinar is 4 skills in harmony, and I try to specify the topic of my material on creating comfy speaking classroom atmosphere. Well, guys, I'm going to start my presentation by telling you a story about my experience of being a student. So I was 12 at that time, and I was in the second grade of junior high school with very limited vocabulary of English, with very limited exposure of English because I studied in a rural area at that time. But then my teacher asked me to join a debate competition. You know, my friends and I were under pressure at that time because we know our limitation. But then we decided to just, let's just looking for experience by joining this debate competition. So we only spent like 2 weeks to prepare our debate. And then we went to the capital city of our province, East Nusa Tenggara. It's Kupang. One day before the debate competition. And you know what? We were surrounded by all great competitors. They spent that one day before the competition just to train their debate. So everywhere we go in that homestay, we always listen to the students training about their debate. And you know what? We were very nervous at that time. We got more under pressure. But then our teacher did something that we can't say it was a miracle. He went out, bought some snacks and soft drinks, and then he went back, asked us to enter our room, and then he said, "Come on, let's have some snacks while playing guessing game." What? Other competitors are training their debate and we're just playing that game. But you know, as students, we cannot just reject what our teachers ask. We just do it. So we spend our one day before the competition playing guessing games. And you know what? We made it into the Big Four at that time. We entered the final round and we made it into the Big Four. I don't know, maybe it was a miracle, but I think my teacher did a really great strategy at that time because he didn't want us to be pressured at that time. He just wanted us to be enjoying the moment. So based on my experience, I just feel that when you can create an atmosphere that make your students enjoy, then you can have your students be fluent in speaking English. So let's just continue with my material. Yes, here are some question words that will guide us to talk in this material. So we have what, why, who, when, where, and how. Now let's start with the first question word, that is what. What is actually comfy? So ladies and gentlemen, if you type comfy on the Google search, you will find comfortable, cozy, easy, restful, and snug as the synonyms of this word. And it means enjoying or providing a position of contentment and security. And it also applies to anything that encourages serenity, well-being, or complacency, as well as physical ease. Then what is actually creating comfy speaking classroom atmosphere? According to Montagner, it is about creating a safe, supportive, and encouraging environment for taking all your students to get engaged with your speaking activities, okay? So by taking this word safe, supportive, encouraging, you can let your students to enjoy the class. So it can be said that creating comfy speaking classroom atmosphere means creating speaking classroom in which the students can enjoy the activities. But why? Why should we create that comfy atmosphere? Now let's look for the big problem in a speaking class. almost all teachers in rural area knows that the biggest problem in a classroom, in a speaking classroom, is that the students cannot speak the target language in the classroom. But why? Yes, that's because of the fear, the frustration, the shyness, and also lack of interest. Things or factors that make the students are unable to speak. Who should be blamed? Teachers? Students? No. Stop finding about who should be blamed. But let's finding about who should fix this problem. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let us see the reality that by creating a comfy atmosphere, we can create daily interaction, natural daily interaction in our English classroom. By creating that natural daily interaction in our speaking classroom, we can enhance communication skills of our students. We can improve their motivation, also their academic performance, and we can solve their hesitation to talk. By doing this, we can help them to enrich their vocabulary, to build their confidence, and to help them to get authority in speech so that they can reach their English speaking fluency. That is why creating comfy atmosphere in our classroom is very important. The next is, who will be the focus of creating this atmosphere? Well, the answer is, of course, the students. Who should be confident? Of course, our students. Who should pronounce the words correctly? Our students. Who should speak fluently? Our students. And who should get rich vocabulary? Of course, our students. Please do not forget that in speaking class, students should get the most exposure of speaking English, not the teacher. Sometimes as the teacher, we forget that students are our focus. Students are the focus of developing. Then we spend the time just to talk. We spend the time dominating the class. But if we ever did that, stop doing that from now. Okay, now we move with the question word, when. When should we create this classroom atmosphere? Of course, every chance, in every opportunity. Why? Because practice makes perfect. We need to let our students practice to speak English every time we have the chance to meet them. Khan and Ali 2010 mentioned that in speaking class, enough time has to be given to speaking. Remember, it's enough time, okay? Not all of the time. It's enough time. Why I make this important, the word enough, because other skills are very important in supporting the development of the student's skill. Hence, we cannot spend only all the time to let the students speak. We should provide time for the students to also study listening, listening, reading, and writing. Because from the harmony of these four skills, the students will be able to develop their speaking skill. Okay, we have been talking about all about the students. Then what's about the teacher? What's the teacher's role? So, as you can see here, the teacher should act as the facilitator in the classroom. The teacher should consider students' needs. The teacher should consider the components of teaching speaking and also the media. The students' needs. If you want to create a comfy speaking atmosphere in your classroom, you should be able to know
what the students like, what is the most familiar for the students. So the students can then be stimulated to talk a lot because they have been familiar with the topic, for example. And then the components of teaching speaking. We as a teacher should be aware of the components of teaching speaking, such as pronunciation, vocabulary, grammar. We need to let these components also get involved in our speaking class. And the last is the media. Please choose the media that let the students enjoy the classroom. We can use movie, we can use songs to let the students get the new vocabulary, and we can combine all the skills to help the students develop their speaking skill. Okay, and then where should we apply this, or where should we create this comfy speaking atmosphere? Well, we can apply it inside the classroom. We can also apply it outside the classroom. So even though the students are outside the classroom, they can still feel the atmosphere of our speaking classroom. So if we do it inside the classroom, we can set the rules with the students together. We can have the activities in the classroom together, so that all the strategies and all the activities that we do can help the students to engage more in our speaking activities. Outside the classroom, we can ask the students to read books, their favorite books, or we can ask them to listen to news, or we can ask them to watching movie, something that is enjoyable for them, so that they can get rich vocabulary, they can get correct pronunciation by listening to the native speakers, so that later they can practice it inside the classroom. Next, we have been talking a lot about the question words, and now we come to the question word how. How can we create this comfy speaking atmosphere? So I want to share, to answer this question, I want to share my experience of teaching transactional speaking in Stkip Soe. So I'm going to answer this question by reflecting on 3 points. The first is class rules, the second is students' perception, and the third is observation. Okay, now let's start with class rules. So at the beginning of the meetings, I and my students discussed about the target of our class. So at that time, we decided to set the target, that is, after at the end of the semester, all the students should be able to speak confidently. Okay, so after setting our target, we set the rules to reach our target. The first is full English. So we decided to only talk in English, and there is no other languages than English in the classroom allowed. If by accident one of the students mention one word or even more than one word in other languages than English, then he or she should pay 1,000 Indonesian rupiahs only for one word. So you can imagine, if he mentions 10 words, he has to pay 10,000 rupiahs. And I think he will be bankrupt. But, you know, this is our deal. So my students do obey these rules. They, you know, they do not want to lose their 1,000 money. So they really, really enjoy this rule. Don't worry, the money gathered will be spent for buying cakes just to celebrate our success of reaching the target, being able to speak confidently at the end of the semester. No corruption here. Okay, next, we also deal that in every meeting, we should speak. All the students should speak, okay? Not only the bright students or the less bright students, all of the students should speak. The teacher too will speak, but does not dominate the class. And then after setting the rules, I, as the teacher, try to set the topics from simple to difficult, but I try to find out the topics that is familiar to the students, just to help them easy to speak, using familiar words when speaking. Okay, after setting the rules, we went to the class activities for 7 meetings. And then at the 8th meeting, we did midterm test. So after the midterm test, I asked some questions to my students just to reflect what has been happened after the 8 meetings. So here are some questions that I asked, and also their interesting answers that I did not expect at that time. So the first question is, how do you feel? I just want to find out whether they are comfortable or not with my my class strategy. But then I find that all students say we are comfortable, we have no pressure, and we have no fear to talk. And this is actually satisfying, but I cannot be satisfied that fast. I should go on to the next question. So let's check the next question. Why do you think make you comfortable in our speaking class? And then I got these answers. The class is exciting. The teacher is friendly. Oh, thank you. Much vocabulary acquired. Mispronunciation is fixed directly, so it's easy to remember. And games prevent boredom. Yes, I also have some games during our meeting. So yeah, these are the answers that I got. And I'm really satisfied with this answer. Hopefully they are honest when answering this. Okay, and then next, I asked them about what are their most favorite part in the transactional speaking class. And then some of the students mentioned they like the truth and dare game. And then also talking about family, friends asking me. Well, I think they prefer when their friends asking them rather than where their lecturer asking them. Next, talking to the teacher. Maybe they become more confident talking to me. And then talking in English and training to pronounce correctly. And then presentation. And then seems like the rule no other language than English is in the classroom is also one of their most favorite part. And then the last is they are being able to speak even though they are not that fluent. But I believe after this, in our next 8 meetings, my students will be able to speak fluently. At least they can say that they can speak confidently. Okay, next we move to the less favorite part. Well, this quite challenging because I was very satisfied before, but then I tried to find out the weakness of the classroom, and then I found this. Most of them says none. There's no less favorite part, but some are very honest and they say, it is when I mispronounce the English words. Don't worry, dear, I will fix it. We will fix it together with your friends. And then talking too fast. Oh yeah, sometimes some students talk too fast and maybe me too, talking too fast. So it will make other students difficult to understand. So after this, I will talk slower, and I will also suggest other students to talk slower. Next, being unconfident. Some are still feeling unconfident, but yeah, hopefully after this, we can fix it together. Okay, this is actually a great homework, not for me only, also for all of the students. Okay, and then I asked them also about the rule, no language other than English in the classroom. And they said that it is helpful, motivating, but sometimes because of these rules, some of the students are afraid of making mistakes and decided to be silent in the classroom. But I'm sorry, I always force them to talk. I ask their friends to force them to talk in the classroom. Okay, then I try to ask them whether they realize of their speaking skill development or not. And here are the answers that I get. Yeah, they mentioned that the speaking skill developed, and then their vocabulary get richer, and then some of them can speak English a lot everywhere. Hopefully they do not speak with their parents who cannot speak English at home. It will be a problem. Okay, next, they can speak English well, and then they can answer English questions from other lecturer without opening a dictionary. I haven't confirmed to the other lecturer, maybe after this. And then they become more confident in speaking English. Okay, next. Yeah. I asked them about the rule, every meeting is speaking time. Okay, because we apply full English in our classroom. So all of the students should speak in every meeting. So they mentioned that the rule helped them to develop their English. And then they can finally ask their friends using English. They can apply the frequently spoken words in speaking, in English speaking. And then they become more confident again, and they can pronounce English words correctly. Okay, next I also asked them about the topics. So as I mentioned before, I set the topic from the simple to the difficult one, and I try to relate it to the familiar things that they know, and then they answer this. It's interesting, enjoyable, and then the various topics enable them to talk about new things in every meeting, and then the topics are linear to their lives, so it's enjoyable. Simple topics makes them to be able to speak using easy English words, and the most important thing is that they love English. So after doing the reflection, I tried to find out their suggestion, my students' suggestion, just to make me aware of their needs. So I asked them about the new topic, and they said, please add some most favorite song, and then storytelling, sports, and experience. Maybe they have so much experience to tell, so we will try this later in our classroom. And then I also asked them about what new activity that they want us to do in our speaking classroom. And then they say more English games, singing together, using dictionary, and stand-up comedy. Well, yeah, I hope we can make it for stand-up comedy. Okay, and then for the final question, I tried to ask them the things that make them most comfortable so that I can apply it in the classroom. So they mentioned this: curiosity, teacher and friends. Well, when I read this answer, teacher and friends, I get to realize that, thank God, my students love it to be near me and their friends. It means that the atmosphere is really comfortable for them to speak English. Next, being able to speak English. Yes, that's our target. And then being corrected and appreciated, make them most comfortable. I should apply this more. And then asking questions. Yeah, you know, some students currently like to being kepo. So maybe asking questions is such a good way to help them speak a lot. And then singing together. Yeah, we need some relaxed time in our classroom. So I think we're gonna apply this. And then the last is presenting and being asked about the presentation. This student is going to be the next webinar speaker. Okay. And then just to confirm the student's answer, I did an observation on the 3 meetings. The first is on the topic, my family. And I can see that the students can tell about their family member confidently. Maybe because the topic is familiar and they know their family member very well. So yeah, it makes them more confident. And then I did also an observation on the truth and dare game. And I can see that students enjoy telling their not very secret story because we're still keeping privacy. And they also dare to do TikTok dance, you know, as what their friends ask them to do. And the last, when we did a presentation for our midterm test, I asked them to talk about anything that they like. And I can find that the students present fluently about the things they like, such as sweet food and drink. But yeah, this student speak up about sweet food and drink, but she's not fat. She's so slim. I don't know why. Okay, and then online games and also Korean artists and yoga. And there are so many other topics that they talk about in our midterm test. So based on my experience of teaching speaking, we can conclude that in order to create comfy speaking atmosphere classroom, we should focus on the students. First thing is focus on the students. The students should be able to speak. The students should be able to pronounce well. The students should be able to have good intonation. But remember, do not force the students to be native-like, because as what Pak Willy said before, we have many Englishes in the world. We have Singaporean English, we have UK English, we have Australian English, and we also have Soe English. So just respect to our culture and our mother tongue. And next, we need to set the target. Remember, set the target with the student. Do not set the target yourself. And then set the rules together based on the target that you have set with your students. So when you do setting the rules together with your students, both the teacher and the students will be able to commit to not break the rules. And then choose familiar topics, especially for beginners. Please choose familiar topics. Moreover, apply games and also songs, as my students suggested before. Next, please be friends with your students, just to help them enjoy the classroom. And finally, the key word is that enjoy. Enjoy the moment, both the student and also the teacher. Well, I think that's all from me. Thank you very much. And I give the time back to the moderator, Fitri. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Ibu Heidy, for giving us such a beneficial lesson and knowledge about speaking skill, and also the interesting method. And for my experience, I was also as a student in a transactional speaking class, and I have ever paid 1,000 rupiah because of I speak Indonesian. But now you can see my English is improved well because of the strategy. Again, thank you so much, Ibu Heidy. And I do believe that After listening to this understandable material, all of us will have new insight about how to be better in speaking, and of course, our way of speaking skill will be improved as well as in interesting and fun way. Well, ladies and gentlemen, after we have listened to those materials, reading and speaking from the two great speakers with their fruitful knowledge, now we will come to the question and answer session. Here I have already had a question to Ibu Ria from Pak Devan Kune.
To make sure that you know why you are reading that book. Are you reading for fun, only for entertainment, or do you want to gain information out of the book? Like, for example, is it an assignment, or is it for you just to, like kill some time? That's why you're reading the book. Okay, so need to find the purpose. Yeah, purposeful reading. That's the first thing that you have to know first. Why I am reading this book. So if you know exactly why you're reading the book, then when it comes to a really long paragraph, that's what I can just suggest. You find information that you need by skimming and scanning. Because if you know, oh, I read the assignment, I read this book because this has been assigned by my lecturer, for example, or I want to read this book because I need to gain an important information to share with my students. So you know exactly why you're reading the book. So go to exactly the particular passage or page in which it will give you that information. So then when the paragraph is too long, you do the skimming and scanning. So if you cannot find the information there, go skip, find the other one, like that, right? Because you cannot find the information on that particular paragraph. But in case you are reading a fictional book or novel, then there is this time we need to understand the plot and things, right? So that's why you need to read even like a really long paragraph. In case it's a really long one, take a break. Okay, after you read like the half of the paragraph, then you can just write to just like give your time some time to think. Give you a time to think, like, okay, what I have just read, okay, and then grasp it a little bit, then continue reading. Because if you keep on reading the very long paragraph without even gaining what exactly it is the text tells you about, then you will not gain anything either. Okay, so just take a break a little bit, then make sure you understand what you have just read and find the purpose of why you are reading that book. So if the paragraph is too long and you don't find any information there, go ahead. Okay, go to the next paragraph. Okay, that's it. That's what I can say. Okay, thank you, Mr. Devan. Right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ibu Ria, for the understandable answer. Well, everyone, now we are at the end of our session for the only one question. So again, I want to say thank you very much for Miss Teresia Theodora Bengan Ola S.Pd and Ibu Heidy Wulandari S.Pd M.Hum for the acceptable and informative presentation with many interesting way to teach reading and speaking. Yes, sure, Ibu Ria, time is yours.
Thank you. So I am so interested in Miss Heidy's pronunciation. That's amazing. Presentation. Well, I have this particular question, Miss Heidy. When it comes to you teaching your students and they all have basic English, right? okay, they enter the university because they are particularly interested in English education, for example, or English literature, but maybe they have a very basic English. Then how did you help them, or then make sure that they get more and more exposure to English speaking? And how can you encourage them to not get intimidated by an environment in which maybe their friends are more fluent than they are? And how can you fix that into your environment, class environment? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question, Ms. Ria. Well, actually, I apply this strategy. So I divided the students into groups, and I asked them to have like daily talk. So everywhere they are, when they went to canteen or when they went to the library, they went there with their friends in team, so that they can practice speaking a lot. So it's not only in the classroom using that 1,000 rupiahs rules, but also outside the classroom. I just want the less bright students to study from the bright students. So by having them speaking outside the classroom, I think they can learn more naturally. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the interesting question for Ibu Ria. Sure, for Pak Invianto Boymao, time is yours.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Sorry, I am on my videos because my signal is bad. But I want to ask some questions for Mrs. Heidy. Hello, you can hear me?
Yeah, sure. Go on, Pak Fian.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. I want to ask some questions. How about you facilitate your class to apply your rules? Maybe some method or some case study you use to facilitate your class to they speak in English, or some material you use to teach for them, or something in your class. Maybe what you use to facilitate your students in the class to speak in English and apply to your rules in your class.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Fian, for the question. So I involved the students in setting the target together, and then we set the rules together, and then we set also the consequence of breaking the rules together. So I didn't set the rules myself. I involve my students in doing everything in our classroom, because that's not my classroom. That's me and my students' classroom. So we set everything together. We discuss it together. If I think my students do not agree with what I say, I ask them to suggest something that they want. So I can do everything based on my students' needs in my classroom. I think that's the best way to let them deal with the rules that we have set together. That's it, Pak Fian. Hopefully it can answer your question.
Thank you, Pak Fian and Ibu Heidy. Next question is again come from Pak Devan Kune from SMP Katolik Sintiani Soe. The question is, Nowadays, there are many sources that can be accessed by students when learning English. What are your strategies to overcome if there are some vocabularies, phrases, idioms that are not correct, insult, or even has negative meaning? For Ibu Heidy, time is yours.
Right. So if that's so, then we can find the role of a teacher. A teacher's role is to help the students to filter everything that they can learn from everywhere. So ask your students to let you know what they study and the sources, so that later in your speaking classroom, you can discuss it together. You can let them know what is right and what is wrong, so they can choose. That's it. Thank you, Pak Devan. One of my students, my ex-students actually.
Thank you very much, Pak Devan and Ibu Heidy, for the interesting question and understandable answer from Ibu Heidy. And ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end of our session. So based on the material we have learned, I can conclude that when you always read more and more, you will be more comprehensible and more informative about many things. And remember, practice makes perfect. So in every chance, every occasion, you are able to speak English confidently. Again, thank you very much for your kind attention. I do believe that after listening to all material as explained by all speakers, we will have new insight and high knowledge about all skills, listening, writing, reading, and speaking skill. And of course, it will help us to upgrade our skill in teaching all skills as well with many interesting ways. Thank you very much. And I will give time back for the host. Well, thank you so much, Fitriani Banunaik and Pak Yabes Olbata M.Pd for being the moderators. Thank you very much for the honorable speakers for sharing fruitful information to us. And I also want to say big thanks to my beloved all participants. Thank you so much for your time and your kind attention. So far, you have gotten many knowledge that you can apply in your study or in your daily job. Well, ladies and gentlemen, before we end the webinar, I'm going to remind you to complete the attendance list that we have shared on chat box. All right, ladies and gentlemen, next we will take picture together. So for those who doesn't open his or her camera, please turn on your camera.
Hai curang, hai curang. Come on. Mulai dari dulu. Sudah. Dan ini kecil. Screenshot mana kita?
Well, first slide. Move next slide.
Kontrol dengan P. Sudah.
Next slide.
Minta perbaiki muka.
Okay, done. Again, I want to remind everyone, don't forget to fill the attendance list that the link has been shared in the chat box. Finally, from the bottom of my heart, I want to say big thanks for all the great speakers, participants, and also the committee that involved in this event. I do apologize for my mistakes during this event happened. Hopefully, all the materials can help us to increase our skills in English. See you in the next webinar.
Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, everyone, for reminder, the certificate link and material will share in everyone email. Thank you so much.